Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual career counseling and resume review event hosted by Indo-American Community Service. In short, it's called IACS. I'm Ratnavel, and as a member of the IACS, I will be co-hosting today's panel discussions. Before we review the agenda for today, I would like to give a brief overview of the Indo-American Community Services Organization. IACS was founded in 2010 in Chicago by a group of professionals. Since then, it has evolved into a strong professional networking platform that focuses on educating, developing, inspiring, and empowering diverse leaders across the United States. Over the last 10 years, IACS has hosted several events, including executive leadership conferences, technology conference, women's conference, and diverse career expo events. Also, as a part of these and the annual activities, they host Young Leaders Program, Internship Program, and mentoring programs. So it's been an organization that has been giving back to the community for the last 10 years. We have many corporate sponsors, including ITW, Dover, Apergy, Sonoco, USG, Exelon, Microsoft, Capital One, Tech Mahindra, McKinsey, OneMain Financials, and Collaborate. As you all know, this year has been a very difficult and trying year for many of us. A lot of lives have been lost during this pandemic, and it has impacted many households, not only around the country, but across the world. A lot of professionals lost their jobs and are looking for new career opportunities. Students are attending virtual classes, and some have even postponed their graduation due to the current job market. With the intention to help out the community during these difficult times, IACS is hosting today's career counseling and resume review event. Today's event has two streams that happens in parallel. The first stream is the set of panel discussions where corporate leaders and career advisors, they talk about the talent recruitment, formulating elevator pitches, interview tips, compensation negotiations, and digital networking, and many other topics. In parallel, we also have two virtual booths for career counseling and resume review. We have one virtual booth for students and one for experienced professionals. As you enter the virtual booth, there will be representatives, career advisors, who you can interact one-on-one through chat and through Zoom. And you can definitely get benefited from them. You can have your resumes reviewed. You can talk to them about your career and the opportunities out there and many things. So with that, I'll go on to today's agenda for the panel discussions. If you have any questions on this for this speakers on this panel, please post your questions on the discussion in the Brazen website. For today's session, we have three distinguished and well-known corporate speakers as panelists. I will give a brief overview of them, and then I will let them talk about themselves. And they are here today to talk about many things, many aspects of corporate recruitment, talent acquisition, and post-COVID hiring. First off, we have Marianne Boldori. She is the Vice President of Human Resources at Conagra Brands. Marianne has more than 20 years of experience as a human resource leader, and she has a bachelor's and master's degree in management. Next off, we have Nag Vaidyanathan. He is the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at OneMain Financials. And last, we have Reid Lappin. He is the founder and CEO of Vokal. So with that, I'm going to start the session, and I'm going to invite Marianne Boldori to talk about recruitment and talent and post-COVID hiring.
Thank you, Arki, and thank you so much for watching us today and participating in this event. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thanks for the AISC to invite me to speak with you. So I wanted to get started before I talk about the recruiting landscape to give you a brief overview of who Conagra Brands is. And so, Conagra is a food innovator and a manufacturer of our iconic brands that probably many of you have in your pantries. So we have a well-established portfolio with brands such as Bird's Eyes, Duncan Hines, Healthy Choice, Mary Calendar, Ready Whip, and many others like Slim Jim and Chef Boyardee. But we also have brands that are emerging brands, such as Angie's Chica Pop, Boom Chica Pop, Duke's, Earth Balance, Frontera. So we have a huge portfolio of more than 100 brands that are in your pantry and that are actually makes us a business, an essential business during this pandemic. We are headquartered in Chicago, but we also have a big operation in Nebraska, in Omaha. And we have around 50 plus locations throughout the United States and Mexico and Canada. Our revenue is around 11 billion, and we do have around 18,000 employees throughout those locations. So just to give you a little bit of a update on who Conagra Brands is. You might know our brands, you might not know as Conagra. So I encourage you to, look at our website and learn a little bit more about us. We're going to talk about a little bit about hiring. How do we see hiring through a normal lenses of our operation, but also how hiring has changed through COVID. And I want to start talking about how do we attract talent to Conagra. Usually we have especially two ways of looking for talent. One is our professional experienced positions that we have open in the organization, and those positions can vary in many areas. We do look for talent. If you look at the COVID landscape, being an essential business, we have not slowed down our hiring process. We have been hiring at the same pace or at an accelerated pace because we have this important mission of bringing food to your table. So positions, experienced professionals are positions we always looked for and will continue, filling our positions through the marketplace. We do have all of them in our website, and the way and the kind of talent we look for those positions have not changed. I'm going to talk a little bit about what new skills have come up after the pandemic, but essentially the way we look for talent is no different than we've done before through our websites, through our social media, using a lot more technology than we've been using before, but ensuring that we are, connected to the talent, especially from a digital space. But we also have many positions that are internship positions. Campus recruiting is an important platform for Conagra. We have internship programs in areas such as sales, research and development, engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, finance, and so many other areas, IT. So we do hire internships through the summer summer internships, and we actually do that through both fall and spring recruitment. We do have many relationships with different schools and different universities throughout the US. But quite honestly, very recently, most of that type of recruiting has shifted to 100% online, where before we would be more present in campus. Today, we are obviously 100% virtual. The good side of that is that has helped us to expand the number of schools that we are connecting with and that we are receiving applicants from. So again, I encourage everyone that if you are interested in the company, you can look online at our positions. We are still looking for actually our brand management program. We are still looking for some candidates for our for our internships there. We have two types of internships for graduation and bachelor's degree, but we also have an MBA program for brands. That's another one that we offer, such internship program. When we think about hiring, so if I separate between the recruitment and the selection, so as I said, recruitment has just expanded a little bit where we look for, but what really changed throughout the process, the pandemic, it's really the screening process and actually the interviewing process, and that's an impact for both the organization but also for the candidate. We always had phone screens. That's what most organizations do as a first step in the process. But then the natural immediate step would be a face-to-face interview. And that has shifted to 100% virtual situation where both candidates and managers had to get used to video interviewing. And some were already comfortable with that, especially managers that were used to recruit for regional positions or for home office positions. But when you think about the candidates that we were attracting to the Chicago market or to the Omaha market, they were usually individuals that would come up to our facilities and have the chance to meet with our leaders. And so we had to navigate through that because not many candidates feel comfortable with that, not many managers feel comfortable with that. So we develop a lot of training, a lot of support for both internally and externally to make that process smooth for both sides. We also understand that, it's, accepting a position and accepting to join an organization it's not such easy decision to make. So we understand that some candidates are having to accept positions without even looking at our office facilities or where potentially they will work in the future. So creating a comfort level for the candidate and creating different connections throughout the organization where maybe they will speak with more people that they usually would do. So that they feel comfortable that they can assess the company culture and assess the environment before they make the final decision. So I think we are very mindful of what the challenges had brought to us. At the same time, we're trying to use those learnings on how we actually improve our hiring and our onboarding processes for Conagra. And that leads to what I think companies are looking for in candidates. The business, if you look at the business landscape, every business, whether you are an essential business and you are hiring or you're having to downsize your business, everybody is looking for opportunities to be productive and to ensure that employees can adapt to new ways of working. So we are facing many workplace shifts, and think about that not only about Conagra, think about any organization you are interacting today. There is a lot of workplace shift. There is a lot of discussion about what the future of work is going to be. Are we going to be are we going to go back to the same office environments we had? Are we going to make adaptations? So the businesses in general, they are having those discussions right now. And when they discuss that, they are expecting that people that are going to join us, there are individuals that do have a ability to adapt and to be agile in this environment. So it's very important for candidates to keep that in mind when they are assessing an organization or they are looking for a new position. Think about skills such as agility, comfortable of being comfortable with the unfamiliar and with change. Being self-directed. It's the dynamics between the manager and the employee have changed significantly. As before, maybe they have more face-to-face contact. Right now, they are literally behind a screen. And if you think about the hires we've made since April, they have not met their managers face-to-face so far. So they are having to build the connections and the relationships throughout the organization pretty much at distance. So also demonstrating a growth mindset in resilience as we are facing all these shifting priorities and shifting landscape in our business. I think people that demonstrate those skills are actually advancing quicker in the process. I think, I've already touched on that, but I wanted to talk about it's the dynamic between the manager and the employee has changed as well, or has just actually, in my opinion, improved. I don't think these were not important things in the past, but communication, being empathetic, influencing skills, they were always important, but they have become a lot more right now because you are actually having to navigate all shifting things that we are going through. So those are important skills that anyone that's in the marketplace should be looking at, whether you're looking for a leadership position or whether you're just looking for an entry-level position. Demonstrating those skills are very important. And I'm not going to touch on something that probably all of us know, right? Technical expertise, technical knowledge is obviously tremendously important, but today digital fluency has become at the forefront of any job, where maybe before there were other jobs that had this at the forefront. Right now, I think many of us are having to upskill in terms of digital fluency. So in a nutshell, I think, I would like to highlight those skills: digital, cognitive, social, and emotional, adaptability and resilience. If you think about you're preparing your resumes, you are looking at what you want to demonstrate, what examples you want to demonstrate to the marketplace. I think those are definitely important things that you want to highlight as you are talking with your prospective employers. I think that's what I had as a start. I know we have other speakers here and we're going to be here to answer questions, but hopefully that gives you a good landscape of where we sit today.
Thank you, Marianne. I would now request Nag to talk about the growth opportunities and recruitment opportunities that we have today.
Thanks, RK. Thanks, Marianne. Marianne did an awesome job, I think, laying out what is in store and what we're all kind of trying to figure out. We all don't have the answers today, and that's a good thing because we'll have to work together quite a bit, even amongst companies, to figure out what proven practices will become in the future versus how we've all operated up to date, right? So high level, I work as a CTO at OneMain Financial. I joined about 2 years ago. I came from Denmark, and it has been a very different experience working in New York. The office is based in New York, so I used to travel quite a bit before the pandemic hit, and now the family is here with me. I've been at home since March, and that itself is a big shift, right? The role that you assumed that you were doing was what it was going to be versus how the role has evolved and is still evolving. So that's a mindset shift I think each one of us have to think through. So I will try not to repeat everything Marianne said, but I'll give you variations of what I think is emerging. So that's one thing, really being, I would say, adaptable in a way that no one knows the answers and we'll figure out things together. I think that's one key thing. The second key thing I will say is the shift in business models and the importance of digital and customer experience. So the way we used to work, the customer was at the center of many things we did, but we did not actually drive customer experience in a way we have to today, because there is not a lot of these face-to-face conversations, face-to-face meetings, and the way you engage with a customer has taken a big shift in a way that they would like to engage with us. So that's another shift that many companies are having to do now. The third shift really I'm seeing is evolving business models. What I mean by that is, as you can see in the US, right, there's a lot of things happening at the same time. I was in another conference and we were talking about 5 crises happening at the same time. And humans are learning how to kind of adapt to these 5 crises, right? There's an economic crisis, a health crisis, a political crisis, there's a social crisis, and a climate crisis. no one has experienced all 5 at the same time. So many companies are trying to figure out how to get their employees motivated more as a human being than how it used to be before. So Marianne covered the importance of empathy, the importance of engagement, communication, I would say interactions. Those have become really, really important now. So in terms of OneMain specifically, just to talk through that, the key shift that we are doing, we are predominantly a branch-based personal loans provider. So we work in the segment where banks cannot provide loans for this segment. So they don't have high credit scores, they're high risk customers. At the same time, they're better off than payday lenders where you have to pay a lot of interest. So think about the shift that's happened at OneMain, right? A lot of people lost their jobs. There was a lot of furloughing that happened. And OneMain had to quickly figure out how to still take care of these people who are more in need than ever before. So initially we got a stimulus package from the government. We did a lot of borrowers assistance. We did deferments on the loans. We let them pay lower amounts. It really started working, right? So the customers still kind of figured out that, yeah, we want to work with OneMain. Then we quickly realized that because of the pandemic spreading, branches were shutting down. So even though we are essential workers in the branches, the branch team members might come into the branch, but customers were afraid to walk in. So we really had to adapt to how do we serve these customers differently. And we quickly ramped up our digital channel, right? We started doing co-browse. We sell insurance. So how do you sell insurance when you don't talk to the customer about why that insurance is important, right? We had to figure that out. Video chats, two-way texting, push notifications. These are some of the things we had to quickly ramp up. And the reason I'm bringing out these examples is back to that mindset shift that we need in our people, right? So we are looking for people who can quickly adapt, think of problem solving in a way that may not be perfect, but it still achieves outcomes that the customer needs or deserves. At the same time, the company really needs, right? So that is a set of people we are looking for, both in technology, as well as in the branches, as well as in the other corporate functions. Quickly adapt, problem solve, think in design, and adapt design to kind of fit particular scenarios. So that's one thing. It also gave rise to, hey, we don't have to have everything in place before we make a decision. That's a risk. And at the same time, it's something that we're looking for in people. Thinking outside the box, you might have heard that phrase a lot, but it's really coming into action now, because it's not thinking outside the box for what function you perform, but collectively as a company, right? And doing all that virtually. So that's another thing that we are learning. The other thing I would say that has become a key factor for us really is when we think of work that needs to be done, we are not going to the typical experts that we would normally do. What we are finding out now is we can actually pose a question where different people can come up with ideas, and then we iterate through those ideas. So a form of design thinking, if I call it, where you get different perspectives coming in, and then we adapt to those design perspectives and we build solutions. So again, we are looking for people not as experts in a domain, but experts in terms of how they think differently. So that's another thing we're looking for. There are a lot of openings at OneMain. We are predominantly based in, like, our home office is in New York. We have offices in Chicago where we do our digital business. We have an office in Evansville, Indiana, which does a lot of the core applications, if I call it from a tech standpoint. We have Baltimore, Fort Worth. We've got a lot of different offices across the country. We serve in 44 states, and we have about 1,600 branches overall. So it is quite diverse in the US. The last part I want to talk through is the interview process. I think Marianne described it really well. It is not the same as how it was before. Previously, we were nervous going into a workplace to see what the interview might be. Today, we are nervous in terms of whether our machines will work at home, right? You're at the interview, your screen might freeze, or a kid might run at the back, or whatever happens, and you have to live with that. And people have realized that that is a fact of life. So that is one thing you need to remember. The interview content and context is still the same. That has not shifted. What has really shifted is the interaction piece. So be careful about that, or be watchful about that. That's another thing I would say. I really like the other thing Marianne said, which is so true, because we can't go to a physical office. You don't get a chance to interact with the physical workspace or the people who sit there. So the interview process has shifted where you get a chance to talk to a number of people. So you get a virtual reality of what's actually happening at work, right? So that's another thing you need to be mindful of. And then the last part, so I don't repeat everything, is the way we are going to work in the future. It has not been fully figured out. Every company is doing a future of work kind of initiative now, and we don't know the answer, right? And that's shifting every single day. But there are key things we are very, very mindful of. The workspace is not going to be the same as it is today. Physical workspaces may not have the same meaning like it does today. Physically coming into work doesn't have the same meaning as it does today. So really looking for talent across competencies and skills where they are readily available. So the talent pool actually is a lot more expansive now. And the other thing I would say is be prepared to work in the office and effectively. So that is a key thing that we are actually telling our own people now and new people coming in. You need to be effective working from home and as you come into work, and be flexible from that perspective. So I will also end here, and then as questions come up, we'll go to it. So with that, I'll hand it back to RK.
Thank you, Nag. Thank you for that. From your perspective, how this particular pandemic situation has changed your business, right? That has been a very good perspective. Thank you for sharing that with us, especially how your company had to deal not only with employee, but also with the customers, and at the same time evolve as with a new business model, right? Quickly evolve. So I think that is applicable, very applicable, not only to the companies, but also to associates and all the candidates to quickly adapt to the situation and be creative and evolve and look for new opportunities. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next, I will invite Reid Lappin, the CEO and co-founder of Vokal, to share his experience and how it impacts his industry.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I think I come at this from a slightly different lens, just being a smaller business. We're about 60 folks. At one point all in Chicago, but the pandemic has allowed us to branch out, frankly, globally. And I want to build on a lot of the foundational pillars that we've talked about today. So what we do day to day is we consult with incumbent businesses or non-digital native companies to help them accelerate growth in digital. So obviously, with what's happened with COVID, that's really helped our business blossom and grow quite a bit. So we're in growth mode ourselves. So this year, I think alone, we've hired about 20 folks. We've restructured a lot of things in the business. And I think, one of the things that's unique in our world is we do a lot of recruiting ourselves. So our leadership team is tasked with spending at least 20% of their time going out to the market, trying to handpick folks that they think would be a good fit for our team. So I think how your profile is set up across channels, I think becomes important, because I think folks could just as much be looking for you as you are looking for them. I think from the digital standpoint, what I love about what's happened during this time and trying to find silver lining is, we talked a lot about digital and the importance of that. And I think one of the things that I look for that is really not common in candidates, and it's something I would encourage everyone listening today to consider and look into. But I love folks that come in and can tell stories about what they do personally outside of work as it pertains to growth, starting businesses, analyzing businesses. And one of the things that that I hired recently for someone on our growth team that I absolutely loved and just really got me thinking is, in her spare time, she goes out and she buys e-commerce sites and flips them. So there's platforms like Flippa, or Shopify has a marketplace exchange where you can literally buy an e-com site for a couple $100 to hundreds of thousands, right? And what she was able to do is tell me what her intention was and why she bought it's called Knife Depot. I don't know if it's knifedepot.com, so it's knives of all things. But what she was able to tell me was her motive in doing it, what made her curious, and whether she had grown it or not. What I loved was the genuine passion and curiosity. It just embodied a lot of the things that I think the speakers highlighted. Folks that are comfortable with the unknowns, folks that are comfortable in digital, they're agile, they're analytical, they're growth oriented. And so I always like when I find somebody that can weave in some kind of story in terms of whether they've done it at a different place in their career or if it's something that they've done personally. Just helps really understand, like, this is somebody that's going to come here and put in the time and effort because they're doing it in their spare time. And I love that because I think a lot of folks treat work just as work. And for me, I want folks that really want to come in and build a company. So whether it's like Vokal, a $15 million business, or Conagra, a $11 billion business, you know, you got to put the brand on every day and wear it as if it's your own. And as a founder of a business, that's something obviously I'm very passionate about and look for. I think the other thing that's really unique with COVID, and I don't think goes away, but really I think one of the things that our business has struggled with, and even being small has surprised me, is just maintaining a sense of culture. So I think individuals that can really, you know, kind of bring that into the interview process and really, you know, not necessarily highlight or talk about how you can impact culture. I mean, certainly, like, if there's angles to do that, but I think the way that you wear yourself, I think the way that you let your personality come out authentically is really important. And I think to the point is, like, people can be nervous going into people are nervous going into interviews, generally speaking, but yeah, with all the faux pas that can happen when you're doing it over video, it could add some more tension. And I think really trying to just be yourself and just own that. Because I think on the other side of the interviews, we can always sense that. And it's not that sensing the nervousness or the tension is a bad thing, but it's hard for me to really connect with you if you're not really bringing that level of authenticity. So I think I love when people can tell me a little bit about their personal lives, and, you know, whether that's what you like doing outside of work, whether it's about your family, whether it's about your story and how you got to where you are. I think, you know, when you think about a sea of resumes coming in, I think allowing that personal connection to really shine through I think it's important in life, generally speaking, but I think particularly when you're doing videos and you're looking to differentiate yourself, I think that those two things are really good ways to differentiate yourself. Because the way I see it is, you know, it's a competitive process, and your resume comes in, and everyone's resume generally looks the same. You went to school, you got a degree, you had a job, I would hope, in the field that you're applying for. But so I also, like, really encourage folks to then be proactive themselves. So I've hired a few folks that have pinged me on LinkedIn and just said, hey, I'd love to meet you and talk with you. And I'm always open to that. I've had a lot of mentors and folks that have helped me over the years. And I think leaders and people generally speaking are willing to help. So I always think it's interesting to take an angle of reaching out to individuals, not for a job, but to say, hey, what once pre-pandemic was, can you grab a cup of coffee and can you tell me about your story? I think people are really open to connecting. And I think with the pandemic, I think people have looked for more connections and have wanted to give back. And so, you know, one thing I would say is don't be bashful and expand your network, and don't come at it as a lens of trying to get something for yourself, but try to get something out of it. Because what I commonly find is when I talk with someone, and Vas, the CTO at USG, actually sent me a resume yesterday and said, hey, there's someone here smart. And I said, you know, I didn't hesitate for a second. Can you make an introduction? Because if it's not something that can fit at Vokal, my network is massive, and I'm more than happy to make introductions for someone to learn and grow and potentially find an opportunity. So I think that really finding unique ways to expand your network, you know, increase the odds of not only finding a role, but I think most importantly, finding a role that really fits for you. And that kind of leads into my last point, that when you're in an interview process, I really like candidates that are interviewing me just as much as I'm looking to assess and evaluate them. And too often do I find that folks come in without a list of questions, and without really a perspective and saying, like, is this going to be the job for me? Of course, it's always easier to find a job when you have a job. That there's a lot of truth to that, but I really like folks that you know, it creates this element of, like, wait a minute, is this candidate, like, kind of articulating and expressing that, like, they might not want this job? So I think there's a lot of elements of really coming in, not just prepared. I assume everyone on this call is you know, very engaged and does their homework and comes in, you know, with a really good understanding of the brand and the organization. But I think really trying to, again, in a really genuine, authentic way, evaluate if it's the right position for you and the right culture for you. Because at the end of the day, if you get the job, you have to accelerate the job, and the goal is to grow and to find more opportunities. So if the fit isn't good for you, it becomes a lot harder to do that. And frankly, a story during the pandemic, and this happens to us, is we hired someone that wasn't the right fit. And after, it only took about 3 weeks for us to really know that. And it's a hard decision, but we had to let him go. And for me, we're in growth mode. We can't waste time. And I felt really bad about that. And I felt too, like there wasn't enough authentic. If I were to kind of say from his shoes, when he got in, it was literally like the person I interviewed was a very different person that ended up on the other side. And then the fit really didn't work. And so I think it's really important that, you're selfish in the way that you want to really find something where you can grow, where the culture really works for you, and where you feel like you can really help be a contributor in growing that brand and that business. So I tried to keep that pretty short and tight and packaged. So I'm sure we'll have questions at the end, and I intend on staying after a little bit for any of the one-on-one sessions, but hopefully that gives some perspective from more of kind of the boutique, smaller company that's in growth mode.
Thank you, Reid. Thank you for sharing your experience from a smaller, like a startup, like a company, like the small company. We talked about Marianne and Nag's company, which are so big. And from your experience, how a smaller company goes through this pandemic and how you are trying to, get your resources, get your talents acquired. That was a real good one to listen to. So with that, I would ask audiences, if you have any questions, please post on the panel discussions. We have a booth, the panel discussion booth, where you can make use of the discussion session to post your questions. So anything that you post here, I will ask the speakers about. And we have one question here. This is for Marianne. So Marianne, you talked about how the applicant needs to be in this situation, right? How they have to be adaptive. So in general, what your company looks for or what your leaders look for in an ideal applicant. Can you, not just during this COVID crisis or during this situation, but in general, how does your company look for in a candidate? What do you look for?
Yes, well, absolutely. And before I answer that, I just wanted to mention, I love what Nag and Reid put it all together. One thing that called my attention when Reid was talking about, and I think it's so true, it's that level of authenticity. So I'll start with that and I'll just reinforce that because this is, I don't know if that's the best analogy for a panel, but it's like a marriage, right? And we are trying to find the best fit for both sides. So we're all here showing the backgrounds of our house, of our lives, which before we probably didn't have that. We were keeping that to ourselves. And I think that ensuring that the candidate feels comfortable and assesses the culture is very important. On the flip side, as Reid said, that candidate that comes thirsty and wants to understand what the company is all about and wants to assess the culture is definitely something that when we are talking with candidates, we are looking at. I've worked in different environments before joining Conagra. And I had the opportunity to work in more startup or private equity environments where all big companies, even though we have most traditional hiring processes, we try to be like what Reid just described, because at the end of the day, that's an effective way to build a connection and to hire a candidate that will have a long standing with the organization. So when we are looking at skills to answer the question, I like to highlight a few things that probably I didn't touch in the beginning, and Reid touched on that, which is critical thinking. If I would name the number one skill set we are looking for in candidates today, it is critical thinking. It is problem solving. It is understanding how individuals in this space are looking at problems and trying to solve in different and in smart ways. Nag also touched that very well, and I think that that's true for Conagra. We actually have in some parts of the organization, we actually do critical thinking assessments to help candidates and individuals to see if they can bring that to light. So critical thinking as number one, you know, not to be redundant, but that ability to, you know, to navigate change, to navigate the uncertain, to navigate the things that we don't have all answers, you know, so that adaptability is very important, and we look at that for candidates. We are also looking for candidates that you know, not necessarily the conventional, traditional, you know, career path. We are looking at people that took risks, you know, that decided to eventually learn something new. So that learning, that life learner, you know, that individual that is always looking at learning something new, that's not necessarily just looking for a job title or a paycheck, you know, that individual that's really truly looking for an experience and looking for a chance to do something different. So you see that we are talking a lot about soft skills and things that not necessarily, I mean, of course, that the technical expertise and that experience that you commonly see in a job description, of course, that's important for us, and we're always going to assess that. But I think companies more than ever are more willing to take more, to be more, I don't want to say risk, but to really bet on a different skill set or a different background, because that's what most of companies are having to leverage today in this environment. So I would say those are the main things for Conagra that we are looking at. Even though big company, not I mean, we have many companies bigger than us, but we have this entrepreneur aspect that we want to make sure that our employees are bringing to the table as we assess candidates.
Thank you, Marianne. That was very helpful. I would like to ask now, Nag or Reid, if you have anything to add to that, what you're looking for in an ideal candidate.
I think Marianne covered it. I really liked what Reid said before, because a lot of the attributes he talked about is what larger companies are trying to bring into the landscape, if I say, right? So Reid, honest, it was awesome what you said, because I think that's really what companies are looking for, a different level of pace compared to how traditional companies work. Right, critical thinking, like Marianne said. I don't want to repeat, but I would say she covered it quite. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only thing I might add is, you know, like, and not that this is the answer, but like, I think people that like even kind of build their own websites that tell the story of their resume or use different tools, right? Like, how do you get out of just like that black and white resume and just choose? There's like 4 different ways you can structure. And I've never built a resume, but like, you know, again, like the way that you can be found online, the way that you can position and present yourself, the way that you can demonstrate some of your work. Like, you know, just as an example, like the lady that I referred that bought that e-com site was able to pull up all of her analytics and tell me, you know, on this date, I ran these different test campaigns and things of that nature. So I just think like, you know, the way that, and it has to be authentic, right? You can't, there's no way you can make this stuff up. But I think that there's some unique aspects out there that I also think kind of, you know, lend itself to like showing that you're a forward thinker, that you're taking advantage of like modern tools and things that are out there. So I think that that's the only thing I might add that is small, but perhaps something to consider.
Okay, thank you. That was nice, you know, how to demonstrate, right? How to self-brand yourself rather than from the traditional resume model, how you can show what you have done and explain and have a different thinking. I think that's great. Thank you, Reid. I mean, especially for a startup companies like that, right? That's what you're looking for. What have you done? What different things have you done, right? And that would set you apart from other candidates, right? So that is really wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Reid. And we have another question. This is in general to all 3 of you. What is the outlook on the post-COVID job market? Right now, we have seen some ups and downs in the market. Some industries have got, you know, good opportunities like online retailing. They had wonderful opportunity. They had a lot of growth, and they had to adapt quickly, and they had to scale up and do many things. But there are other industries like tourism and other stuff which were impacted. Travel industry, they were impacted. So from your perspective, what's going to be the post-COVID job market? From your industry experience and also you being leaders, knowing other industries as well, how it could impact. Can you share some experience about that?
Yeah, I can get started. I mean, I think Nag put it well. We don't know yet for sure. I think the first reality is that companies are having to really up the game on their predictive analytics and ensure that if you think about the current landscape that organizations, even big organizations as that provide food or any other consumer product, you see a lot of shortage, you see a lot of disruption in supply chain. And that's a result of, you have a forecast. It's a traditional process that has to happen. And that forecast was disrupted big time. At some point, Clorox was not something that people would feel like, right now it's like you can find. And, the same things happen to our organization where, we saw products such as Chef Boyardee, which is like, a very, very traditional brand, and that all of a sudden it became forefront and center. But the reality is that, we also cannot, move away from innovation, and from the things that really are, that growth engine of the organization. So as we are looking at, from a food perspective at the staples and the center of the aisle kind of products, we're also, keeping, the full steam in terms of the innovation and what's going to look like in the next 2 or 3 years from a product consumer behavior standpoint. So consumer behavior is also changing, and I'm not an expert here. I'm not gonna, try as an HR professional to speak eloquently from that aspect. But the reality is it is changing, and even if you look at from one of our main avenues of growth, which is the frozen food, people are that will remain. Some of them might not, but some of them might. People are discovering new things. They are discovering new experiences. I heard someone saying they discover they have a nice family around them. And so that's creating a lot of interesting behaviors in our consumers. So we are looking at that. We are understanding as an organization what those behaviors are. And that's shaping our strategy, the way we are going to work, and the things that are most important for us moving forward. That certainly will impact the way we work and the people that we hire, and the types of skill sets or the types of knowledge that we want to bring to the organization to be able to leverage that. I am, I think everybody looks at COVID. Obviously, it's a huge unfortunate thing that happened to all of us, and we have so many loved ones it's at such a hard time through this unprecedented times. But on the other hand, there was an acceleration of and a transformation that was waiting to happen. How many times we talked about future of work and now we are having to address future of work as our current challenge. So I think really there is a lot of disruption. I think in each business, we are having to address business in a different way, and people are at the forefront of that. So we are having to adapt our ways of working, but we don't know exactly what that's going to be. But what we know for sure, it's not going to be like it was 6 months ago.
Thank you, Marianne. Nag and Reid.
A couple of things. I'll talk from a tech standpoint in terms of what's happening in the landscape, right? So like Marianne said, a lot of things are being redefined, right? Customer journeys are being redefined, business processes are being redefined, supply chains are being redefined, value chains are being redefined, behaviors are shifting, the way you kind of interact is changing. Well, from a tech standpoint, what I've seen kind of happening is a need for both the old and the new, right? because business models are shifting. A lot of the underlying tech stacks are being challenged now. So how do I build applications in a way that is very different from how I used to? So a lot of the buzzwords that we talked pre-pandemic are now actually becoming real words. The agile, right? We would set up squads, we would say we are doing DevOps, DevSecOps, all these were super words, right? And now those have actually become real. Cloud computing has become real. The availability and stability of systems has become real. Last week, AWS has an outage, right? The whole East was affected, and AWS was known for always being available, right? And so that's being questioned. Microsoft had outages, right? So things that we assumed are always working are also being stretched. So I would say that those are some of the areas I am seeing. Analytics, right? Like Marianne said, data sciences, analytics seems to be an emerging field. Immersive environments, that whole concept is becoming big. Those were all kind of buzzwords, right? Like virtual reality, augmented reality. Applications are starting to form in that space. So that is changing. The ability to think new while working in the old. So that's a very new concept now. So you need to know how your transactional based systems can move into conversational based systems, right? The platform is becoming important. Services are being important. You're figuring out now, I can't build everything by myself. So how do I build ecosystems where I can create partnerships with third parties and leverage what they do best? User interface is becoming important. Adaptive interfaces are becoming important. So those are some of the, just to sample some, right? Those are becoming important. Resource becoming important. So traditional compliance teams versus legal teams, they have to actually rethink too in terms of the people they need within those teams. You can't just look at paper and say everything has been done. They really need to get closer to user acceptance testing now, as an example, right? So there's a lot of shifts like that that is happening. And I think the overarching thing is like, that's why I said what Reid said was very good, because you need people who are thinking differently, are authentic, they want to learn and adapt, and really add value to the company, right? That's really what I see as a basis for what's happening. Reid, I don't know if you want to add, but that's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would echo all of that, and maybe I'll just try to come at it a little bit differently or frame it differently. But all those things are just so true. And so I think the way that I see it is not necessarily like the job market post pandemic, but I think like the opportunity market. And I think what's going to happen there is, because the barriers of entry for startups are so low and the barriers for technology are so low, I think you're going to see speed and digital become like the two most important pieces, whether that's B2B or in the consumer space. And the reason I highlight that is because companies that weren't ready before or aren't, getting into it now, I think you're going to see a lot of great brands die. I think you'll see a lot of great brands that won't exist in 5 years. And I think you're going to have a lot of stress on finding new ways to disrupt and innovate, because startups are coming at you fast and with better playbooks than what you have in digital for incumbent brands. And so therefore, what it ties back to is everything I think that everyone's kind of highlighted is just the importance of understanding the digital space. And it's no longer about like the consumer market, because we've been at home dealing with digital for a year. Now in B2B, I expect like the same experience that Netflix is giving me, right? So I think you'll see a lot of B2B channels really accelerate with venture money and with what folks are going to have to do to productively grow in that space. I mean, the amount of like manufacturing companies I talk to where they say, yeah, less than 10% of our customers buy through our portals today. I'm sitting there like, well, like, and pardon my French, but you're going to be kind of fucked if that's like where you're going to be a year from now. So I think that just, yeah, the lens I come at it is also like encouraging folks to think about what opportunities you can either pursue yourself as an entrepreneur, or when you're in an organization, don't be afraid to speak up about where there's areas to explore for disruption.
Thank you, Reid. Thank you. Thank you all. Like, that was a wonderful, very informative, things from you. Now, we are almost there at the end of the session. So I would like to give you all 30 seconds to just give one or two points, summarize 1 or 2 points for those who are really having career transition and students, especially who are waiting for new opportunities. So if you can give 1 or 2 key points, takeaways for them, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, well, I'll start and to be very brief, don't be afraid of the unknown. I think this is the best opportunity you can ever imagine. If for some reason in the past you thought that all the positions were not available online for you to look at and explore, now they are. Think about how companies are having to reinvent themselves, and don't be afraid of go unconventional in terms of reaching out to to people on your favorite social media platform that you believe it's going to get you that connection. Relationship networking, it's at the forefront right now. Positions are posted, but we are always looking at talent, even if the position is not open. So don't be afraid to get out there, learn about the organizations, learn about what they are doing for the future, because you should not be looking at your next 6 months journey. You're looking at your a long-term journey. It's the energy that people have to, and people and companies are putting right now to onboard. It's significantly more than in the past. So I think look for that opportunity that will bring you the most, and don't be afraid of putting yourself out there, your authentic self. So that's what I would say to closing.
Thank you, Marianne. Nag?
I think she covered it quite well. The key in addition is learning, right? Keep learning, keep looking at what's happening around you, forming the connections, being your authentic self, being curious, trying to find out is a good thing. At the same time, I would say be very wary of what is happening around you. That will also help, because it'll really help you think through what else can I do to make something better based on what I know today, right? That will actually help you in terms of bridging what you want to do versus where you want to go with where you're seeking an opportunity. Because to Marianne's point, some of these positions may not be fully defined, but just based on what you bring to the table, you might actually uncover for us something that we actually haven't thought through. So that's going to be a really key attribute you will bring to the table. So just in addition to what Marianne said, I'd like to add that.
Thank you. Reid, your closing comments?
Yeah, what I would encourage anyone to do is to just go build something on your own. I think there's all these low code, no code tools and platforms where you can build your own apps. You can go buy e-com sites. And I just think it's such an easy thing to differentiate yourself. And I think it's a lot of fun. And frankly, it's just where the world's going. So I think it's all about developing like the right growth mental models around digital products and platforms. And so I think there's no better way than just kind of rolling up your sleeves and doing it, because you no longer need to know how to code to launch something. So, and you never know what it could turn into. So I my whole life I tinkered with starting businesses and never did it thinking I was an entrepreneur. I did it because I was passionate about it. I thought it was fun. It allowed me to explore. So I think, always be building. And I think any company is going to value someone that's a builder. So, I would, and the other thing too, and my kids are too little, but like, I've looked at folks that are struggling with the homeschooling aspect, and I might be too high on this and too forward on, but it's like, I tell everyone, go buy an e-com site and do it as a family. Like, it's like doing a puzzle together or a video game together. There's nothing threatening to it. There's nothing, there's no way to get really hurt from it, as long as you're smart financially and don't kind of over leverage. But I think that's what I would encourage everyone to do, is find a way to be building in some kind of digital format, because that's a story that you can bring into your interview process as well.
Thank you, Reid. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Marianne, Nag, and Reid. Thanks for taking time off your busy schedule to come and talk on this event and speak to our audience of different professionals and students. It was very helpful. I thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good morning, Neeti, and good morning, Meenakshi.
Good morning. Hello, Neeti. Hello, Meenakshi. We are going to get started in about a minute.
Can I just do an audio check? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can. We can. All right. So I think both of you are muted. So whenever you need to speak, you can unmute yourself. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. And for those of you on the East Coast, good afternoon. And welcome for the IACS Career Counseling and Resume Review hosted by Indo-American Community Services. IACS is a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to increase diversity in workplace and provide a premier professional development and networking platform. So in today's event, we are going to have 3 different sessions besides resume review and career counseling. So for those of you who have already been part of the first session, thank you. And for the second session, we are going to have 2 outstanding individuals who are going to share their experience in the career counseling area. So one of the individuals is Meenakshi Dash. She's an associate director, career management in University of Chicago Booth School of Business. She's a consummate career and leadership coach. Meenakshi has about 20 years of experience working in various functions, including brand strategy, product innovation, urban design, career coaching, entrepreneurship across industries like corporates, nonprofits, government, and higher education. Meenakshi believes that everyone has a unique set of experiences that can be well curated to help them find the best role for themselves. Welcome, Meenakshi. And the second speaker today is Neeti Patel. Neeti is a growth marketer and executive advisor of Mosaic Marketing Solutions. Neeti is a marketer who has worked with brands such as American Express and Hilton in the past, and now runs her own growth marketing and strategy consulting firm that helps companies harness the power of marketing to drive measurable, scalable, bottom line growth. All I know is, ladies and gentlemen, today it's going to be a fantastic session, and I'm really looking forward to listening along with you. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Meenakshi and Neeti. If you want, Meenakshi, if you want to start and give us some insights into a little bit more about your background, if I didn't cover anything, and if you want to get started on your topic, that'll be fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to field it over to Neeti, but you covered it very well. Nothing more to add other than thank you for the opportunity to be here, to be amongst all of you. And then I'm really excited to meet all the attendees and help in whatever way that I can with their career search. Over to Neeti.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to meet you online. Like Meenakshi mentioned, we'll very much tag team through this. I'll kick it off, but we're going to keep it very conversational, and hopefully you guys get a lot of value out of what we have to say. I would like to go ahead and share my screen. I think you need to, whoever's a host needs to enable that. So I believe. Okay, perfect. All right, can you guys all see my screen? Excellent. So as the introduction stated, we're going to talk a little bit about managing your job search, from everything that starts with how you present your brand, overall, how you go more tactically through the application and the interview process, and how you evaluate any offers, successes and or rejections that come through. Hopefully you can walk away from this with an understanding of kind of everything you should be thinking about as you go through your job search, and also some really tangible actions that you can take with confidence to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success in your job search. And all of the materials we put together are applicable to folks who are new to the working, and as well as, you know, those that are experienced professionals, either looking for new opportunities or looking to make a career switch. So hopefully you'll find relevance in the next few slides. So we're going to talk first about something that I'm passionate about, given my background, which is about your brand. You know, everybody knows what a brand is, whether it's Nike, Apple, everyone has favorite brands. And when you think of your favorite brand, you know exactly kind of why you like it, what you expect, what makes it interesting, why you like to associate yourself with that brand. And that's kind of what we're doing here, but for your personal self. And so we've split this out into 4 different categories. The first one is your elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is, you know, if you meet someone who potentially can help you in your job search or potentially has a job that you're interested in, how do you kind of convey who you are and why they should talk to you in about 30 to 60 seconds? Very short. It's called an elevator pitch because you should be able to give it to someone while riding in an elevator. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the stages and progression of your career and how to kind of tell your story. And then we'll talk about how you can develop your public persona and separate that from your private self, which is actually really, really important, especially with social media these days. So first we'll start with the elevator pitch. Like I said, this is a 30 to 60 second sales pitch on you. You want to cover really 3 main things. It's who you are, what you do, and what you want to do or achieve in the future. And I know this is going to sound really corny, but even, you know, as an experienced professional, this is something where you want to look yourself in the mirror, get in front of your husband, best friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, and really talk through this. Feel comfortable and confident in what you're saying. It shouldn't be rehearsed. And you should be passionate about what you're saying too. You should really believe, like, this is what I'm about. This is what I really want to do. And here's why you should want to talk to me longer than 30 to 60 seconds. You also want to tell, you can have several different elevator pitches depending on, like I mentioned earlier, if you're talking to someone who has a job that you're interested in and is actively hiring, you have one sort of elevator pitch. If you're just networking and you kind of want to tell someone that you've just met about who you are from a professional standpoint, you have another version. So also, you know, think about versions of your elevator pitch depending on who your audience is going to be. And like I said, practice, practice, practice. It sounds like something you shouldn't do, especially if you're more of a seasoned professional. But I guarantee it's worth it. And you'll kind of, and have other people reflect. Ask them, does this sound genuine? Does this make sense? Is this corny? And I'm sure you'll get some really good feedback that you will not only make your elevator pitch stronger, but make you more confident when you give it. I have 2 examples here just because, like, talking about an elevator pitch sounds great, but like, what does that actually mean? And so the one example is for someone who's a recent grad, right? And so again, you're answering who you are, what you do, and what you want to do. And so in this specific case, you know, I recently graduated from whatever school with a degree in communications. I worked on the college newspaper as a reporter and eventually as the editor of the art section. I'm super passionate about writing and I'm excited to put my skills as a journalist to work while also continuing to learn from more experienced professionals, right? You can make that more conversational depending on the, you know, situation you're in, but that basically covers all the questions in a very short amount of time. From an experienced professional standpoint, again, you want to talk about who you are, what your experience is, what you're proud of, and what you're trying to do. In this particular case is an example of someone who was unfortunately laid off and is looking for a new role and there's a gap on their resume. And so this elevator pitch is saying, here's what I did, here's why there's a gap, and here's why now I'm looking for a job. And so I think, again, you can have several flavors of your elevator pitch, but something like this helps you focus and really get to the bottom of your brand. The next thing is your story. So your brand is like your 30 to 60 elevator, second elevator pitch. But your story is much more detailed. And so think about you're in an interview setting. For those of you who are experienced professionals and have gone through interviews, one of the first questions someone's going to ask you is, tell me about your career, tell me about your experience, walk me through your resume, right? Like those types of things where they're now giving you the opportunity to really tell your story. And so the last thing you want to do is walk through every single position on your resume and every single bullet point on your resume, because they've read it, they've seen it, they know that. So you want to connect the dots, fill in the gaps, explain why you went from one job to the next, explain the value you got out of those jobs. What did you learn? What key experiences influenced your decision to either move on or stay with a company? Also think about where there might be questions on your resume. If there's gaps in your work experience, if you went from one company to a completely different industry or different company, maybe you paused to go to school. Why was that the time you paused to go to school? And also you should end your story with, here's where I am today, and here's what's driving me to reach out to you, have this conversation, apply for a new job. Obviously, for recent grads, you don't have a very long story. So you should focus on, why you chose the degree that you did, what experiences, people, influences got you to where you are, and what do you envision doing with your degree? Like, what are you excited about? Why did you go to school? And why are you having this conversation today or applying for these jobs? And then the last part, and this is applicable no matter what, is, what attracted you to this opportunity? Why are you uniquely positioned to succeed? And always have specific examples and anecdotes. We'll get into this a little bit more when we're talking about interview prep. But again, from your story perspective, practice. Like, have that down pat. You should be able to, when someone asks you, walk me through your resume, you should know exactly where to start, what points to hit, and how to end it, because it's really important, and you will inevitably need to kind of tell that story. I'm going to pass it on to Meenakshi now to talk a little bit about your public persona and how you can separate that from your private self.
Thank you so much, Neeti. As Neeti said, your brand it comprises of these four things, right? It's your elevator pitch, it's your story, but a big part of it, particularly now in this climate, is what's your public persona? We have so many online touch points. LinkedIn is one of them. LinkedIn essentially is think about it as your book cover, right? It highlights how you want to be perceived. If you're applying for a job, the most natural reaction for the hiring manager is to seek you out on LinkedIn to see if you're there. And LinkedIn should really be the highlighted part or the book cover of your story. So think about your profile picture, think about the little synopsis, the bio. What do you want to highlight? Do you want to be the operations expert? Do you want to be the product manager expert? Think about it in terms of that and create a synopsis. You can totally hack and sleuth and look at other LinkedIn profiles that inspire you. So people who are in positions that you aspire to be in, or certain companies have languages or technical skills that they look for in certain roles. Put that all on your LinkedIn and let it be consistent, right? So, for example, if you've worked across 5 different job functions in 5 different companies, make sure that you're not only highlighting one of them, right? And it's not your resume, but it's really, this is what I did, and this is how I moved the needle on LinkedIn. Also think about what are your public and social media accounts. We all have some sort of social media. Do you want that to be part of your public persona? So for example, if a company looks at you and wants to see you as a holistic person and a more well-rounded person, does your social media complement your public professional life? For example, you could be an avid weekend chef, right? And it's not going to in any way harm you, but it's going to add a different dimension to your profile, maybe one that could also enlist a conversation during your interview, in which case certainly share that profile. However, if you have very controversial or polarizing opinions and you present yourself in that way on social media, think about that. Is it going to affect how a company looks at you as they approach you for a job? Have you been in media or press? Has the role that you were in been highlighted in an article? If it has, and it's going to complement what you're looking for next, as well as show that you're an expert in your field, certainly put that on LinkedIn. How can you strengthen it? So be really introspective, but look at LinkedIn from an editor's eye. Look at your public persona from an editor's eye and think of ways to make it concise and sharp and crisp. What that means is don't have long paragraphs describing what you've done, but think of the key points again and how you've moved the needle. Let's come to private self, because we always struggle, especially now with everything being online and now with COVID, everything being virtual. What's your public persona and what's your private self? What do we mean by private self? It's what you do when you close your laptop, close your book, and walk away from your job. What are you doing in that space? Is it visible to the public? Is it something that you want visible to the public? Share only if relevant to your entire professional brand. So you can certainly set up your privacy settings and you can sort of set them up as Fort Knox so that your private self is your private self. To Niti's point, it's not necessarily important for both to cross over. It really depends on what you want to showcase. The advantages and disadvantages of sharing, how much is too much. As I mentioned, if you tend to opine or have opinions that are controversial, then keep those in your private sector, right? In your private self. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that sometimes it could be controversial for the company. At what point do you want to blend the two? And this comes back to my talking about if you have something that's relevant, that complements and enhances the other, then by all means, share the two. So we can go on to the next one, Niti. Thank you. So the application, right? Give me one moment. I'm actually pulling up. What does the application look like? So you see a job posting and you're curious as to what can I do? There are 4 things that you can do, 4 steps, and you can do the research, you can outreach, and what does that mean? And we'll come to that. There's the cover letter and there's the resume. So let's go into the research part of it, and we can move on to the next slide, where the research, again, so many different avenues. Anita, you can move on to the next slide. Yeah, perfect. There's LinkedIn, there's Crunchbase, there's job boards, there's a company website. The most important thing here is be proactive and be reactive. So don't wait for that job posting to come up. If you have certain companies that you're targeting and they don't have the job postings up, list them out. Create a simple tracking document, which is as simple as creating an Excel spreadsheet that has a list of your companies that you're interested in, the roles that you're interested in. Perhaps there's an application out there, create the deadline, and who are the contacts? So leverage, again, I'm coming back to LinkedIn, leverage your contacts, whether they're through undergrad, graduate, companies, even simple extended 2nd degree or 3rd degree contacts. This is where you can do your research and you can do your outreach. Research the industry. It's super important to understand where does this company sit? What is the industry? Are there analogous companies that influence it? And I'll throw out an example. For example, all the food delivery companies right now are really leaning in to the increased business because the F&B outlets, the restaurants are closed, right? But think about, okay, so I'm looking at the food delivery companies and they're obviously excelling, but what are the analogous industries that touch on them? One is clearly technology. Two is clearly lifestyle, right? Like what are the consumers looking for? It's winter in the US or elsewhere, wherever you might be. People are holed into their apartments. What are their buying trends? What's going on? Because that's going to influence how they order, right, through the food delivery companies. So the whole point being, don't just pigeonhole yourself and say, food delivery, that's it. I'm only going to look at these companies. Look at the analogous companies that will provide you incremental steps to get to your ultimate dream job, but also provide you with the ability to anticipate and talk about trends that are going on in the industry.
And I'll add something
Please.
Right there in terms of your research. And this is, I work with a lot of young students, so this is especially for you guys, but don't be afraid to leverage your network. Nobody got to where they are, whether you're Bill Gates, whether you're just starting out, whether you're mid-career, without leveraging their networks. Like that is definitely something you can do. So do not be shy if you have your aunt knows someone who works at a company and she can connect you. Like that is 100% using your network and being strategic. It's not a favor. It's not I was handed this opportunity. No, you still have to go get the job. But definitely recognize an opportunity when you see it. Get together with family. You're talking to cousins and uncles and aunts and parents, and really start to understand what these people do, who they know, look on LinkedIn, see what connections you have, and ask them to introduce you to contacts that are going to be helpful. I think that's one really, really strong asset that not everyone, but a lot of people tend to overlook. That's kind of right in front of you, is who you know and who they know. And sometimes that comes through on LinkedIn. Sometimes that comes through in conversation. So I also wouldn't be shy to let, family members know and friends and neighbors know you're looking and this is what you're looking for. And let me know if you hear of opportunities. Really, like Meenakshi said, be proactive about it, because that's the best way to find out about opportunities, to be on someone's short list when they post a job.
Absolutely. Really good point. And to Niti's point, tap into your network. Don't be too proud or shy. A lot of times we let our ego, or we try to say, they're going to think badly of us. They really aren't. Everyone, particularly now, is really looking to help one another. And so if there's an opportunity for them to connect you with someone for an informational conversation, because again, to Niti's point, they're not giving you the job. You have to work for the job, but they're giving you that little touch point where you can have that conversation. So don't be too proud. Don't be too shy. The worst that can happen is someone won't respond to you. It's okay. Move on to the next person. Your outreach email should be simple, to the point. You don't have to outline who you are in the email. You can merely express that you're super interested about their journey and where they're at, and would they have anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes of time to speak with you. It's even better if in the outreach email you give them a day and a time range, so that people don't have to think and they don't have to kind of go, I have to now look at my calendar. You can just say, I'm available Monday through Thursday between 1 and 5. Is there any time in between that would help you? So be proactive. You can also be reactive, but there's no need to wait for a job posting. Keep track, and this is coming back to keep track of those conversations, keep track of those people that you're connecting with, right? And this is for a couple of different reasons. It's for accountability, so that you feel and you know what you're doing and the steps that you're taking. And it's not just all falling into a black hole. It's really nice to see that list of to-dos and, okay, I contacted so-and-so from this company. I did this, and then keep it updated. It not only keeps you accountable, but it gives you a sense of accomplishment. And for a job search, this is so crucial, because it's already overwhelming to begin with. So if you can create some amount of structure accountability that also gives you that accomplishment, it's perfect. Always circle back with those who help you along the way. Don't forget, it doesn't matter if you get the job, you don't get the job, keep people posted. They've spent time speaking with you anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour or more. Acknowledge that and keep them abreast. They want to know where you've landed. They want to know how they can help you further. So send those thank you emails. Say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I got an offer in this job. It would not have been possible had you not spent time telling me about it. So be open, be authentic, be yourself, but keep in touch with the people who've helped you.
Yeah, and I would also say one thing that we didn't explicitly say, but make new connections on LinkedIn, like reach out to people there. And I would always advise you to include a note. I know that's usually an option, but take the option, include a quick one-liner, maybe how you know them, how you guys are connected, or what you're, who you are, why you're interested, or what you're looking to do by connecting with them. I think it's really important. And I tend to, when I get connections or invites, I tend to look at, did they send a note or not? Or are they just, or if it's obvious why you're connecting, then you don't need to do that. But if it is someone who may be like, 2 degrees removed from you, definitely include a note and say, what we're trying to accomplish.
Definitely. Agree with you. So we can move on to the next one, which is cover letter and resume. So and again, this comes back to include that note. So if your application allows you room to include a cover letter and they say it's optional, take that option. It's such a great opportunity for you to connect the dots. Your cover letter is your story, right? So if you don't get an opportunity to come face to face with them, your cover letter allows you to do this. And particularly if you're a career switcher, it allows you to connect the dots that your resume might not predictably do. So why this job and why them? I always say if you can remove the name of the company from the cover letter and put another name in there and it works just as well, your cover letter is not achieving what it should be achieving, right? So this cover letter comes after you've done all the research on the company and the industry so that you can start off and say, I really admire you because of these reasons. So don't regurgitate and tell them what they already know, but talk about it as how does it align to you and your set of experiences and your aspiration, right? And that's what the cover letter does. It's a great tool if you're changing careers. Don't look back too much, right? Focus on the job at hand and the transferable skills and the examples. So one quick hack that I like doing and I recommend is look at the job description. If you have the job description, that's where all the meat is, right? So pull out, are they looking for analytics? Are they looking for collaboration? Are they looking for leadership, cross-functional? And I like to pull out the job description, my resume, and then I make notes and highlight all those things and do a simple little tree diagram. Where are the ways that I can show them that I have an example of leadership that translates directly to them? Use words from the job description, but align them to you. Offer references. This is really a good point, and this can be done straight up. So for example, Neeti, I want to get a job at the company that Neeti works for or heads. And I've had this incredible conversation with Neeti, and through Neeti, I've learned that this job is perfect for me. I'm going to mention it, right? Neeti is a heavy hitter in that company. She has taken the time to spend 3 hours with me. I'm going to highlight that and say, through Neeti, this is what I've learned, which has even fortified my reason for applying to you. Mention those names. And if it's a referral, even better. Neeti, you can refer me. Resume. What is your resume? Often we think of the resume as it's just a list of tasks and roles and job functions. It's not. Your resume should not be telling them what you do on a daily basis. Instead, it should be telling the company and the hiring manager, this is a list of my achievements and accomplishments in this role. This is how I made an impact and this is how I moved the needle. It's not just a list of the tasks that I did, but it's a list of what those tasks accomplished. And an easy way to do this is quantify, right? Think of ways you can pull in percentages. I improved the cost efficiencies by 30% between 18 and 2020. Write it down, right? Think about wherever you can qualify and quantify. And if you can't, and it just merely sits as a task, remove it if it's not relevant. You don't have to have a list of every single thing that you did every month at all. Highlight and customize. Again, this is where the job description comes in place, right? Because they tell you what they're looking for. And if there's a way for you to transpose even those simple verbs, you can get past the first screening. So really leverage your cover letter and resume, and don't think of them as afterthoughts. Edit them, continue to reiterate. I always say that the resume is a work in progress till you stop working, and even then you need it. So continue to iterate it even after you get a job. So we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'll say about your resume is you don't want to put things out there that say I launched, new product, or even if you get specific about the product, because there's like zero chance that you launched that new product by yourself. Like you played a specific role on a team that launched the product. Yep. So also be specific about your contribution, your role, your value, because everyone knows that you're not doing this in isolation. And so whether it's, you were the team lead and you helped to allocate responsibilities and hold people accountable, like whatever it is, and to Meenakshi's point, obviously, if you can then demonstrate that you had an impact, your specific contribution had an impact, I think that's the most powerful thing that you can do. But definitely, in addition to not just saying a list of, your job function, you also should not say you worked on things, because that doesn't really add a lot of value.
And also when you collaborate, it shows that you have that ability to work cross-functionally, collaborate and lead, or be a participant as well, right? Be part of a team. Yep, I agree with you, Neeti. Over to you for interview.
All right. So interview prep, I think, it's really hard when you're applying on sites like Glassdoor and Indeed, and you feel like you're just sending your resume into a black hole, and more often than not, you don't hear back. If you do, you get some sort of automated response. You know that a human being probably actually didn't even look at the resume, but it went through some sort of software that screened for certain words. So when you do land that interview, it is I can't stress how important it is to prepare. Even if it's not a job that you're super excited about, even if it's not your top of the list job, every interview is good practice, and every interview is an opportunity for you to prepare for that, that job. And so I think this goes back to, I know we keep saying it and it sounds really obvious, but know the job description, know what role they are trying to fill and what skills they're looking for in the person they want to hire. I cannot tell you the number of times I've interviewed with someone, and to Meenakshi's point, they could have said the same exact stuff to a hiring manager at like a handful of companies. It is not at all specific to the job that's posted. It is not at all specific to the company that's hiring. So know the job description and make sure that that is your frame of reference going into the interview. Definitely research the company. Obviously, you did some of this when you were putting together your cover letter and applying for the job, but continue to research. Look at the recent news. Go back 3 to 6 months and see, on their news page on the website, what kind of articles are written, where has their name popped up in the media. Understand the product and the offering, their customers. So who do they sell to? What are they selling to them? And then the competitors, who are they up against? Who is in their competitive set? What does that landscape look like? What are the trends in the industry? And to Meenakshi's point, the analogous industries. So don't just focus on, again, back to her example of food companies, that's interesting, but there's a whole other host of industries that are powering software that are supporting these food delivery industries. So really think about what are the adjacent types of functions and industries. Again, practice, practice, practice. I can't emphasize this enough. Practice telling your story. You will get the question of, tell me about yourself, tell me about your experience, and you don't want to fumble that. You need to have a response and be confident and passionate about it, and make sure it's brief. You also don't want to sit there and talk for, 10 minutes, you'll see people's eyes glaze over. Definitely, again, go back to the job description and have examples, specific examples, preferably from your most recent experience that demonstrate the relevant skill sets that they're looking for, the relevant experience that they're looking for. And don't just regurgitate what's on your resume. You need to make it come alive when you're actually speaking to someone. I would also say, like, plan for answers to common behavioral questions. That's something that I tend to do a lot of in my interviews, just to see how people react, because I can see your skill set and your experience on the resume. But what I can't see is, tell me how you're an effective communicator. Tell me how you handle conflict. Tell me how you are able to persuade people who don't have the same opinion as you. Tell me a little bit about how you work in a cross-functional environment, how you're a strong collaborator, what you do when you don't have all the answers. Those are the types of questions I tend to focus on, and I feel like a lot of employers do as well. And so there's common questions. You can Google it, look up behavioral questions, and just think through what you would say if someone asked you that. Again, with specifics and preferably from your more recent experience. Have a list of insightful questions. Do not say, well, do you like your job? Is this a great culture? Do you have fun working here? I mean, these are all, again, to Meenakshi's point, you can ask that to any company, anywhere, to any person. You really need to be thoughtful about the questions and demonstrate that you've really thought about this role, you've done your research, and you've taken the time to really think through, what you want to understand and know. And then the last one is just, this is always one that you forget to do because you've like prepared and you're ready and you're set to go the day of, but check the news the day of. Make sure there's nothing that has popped up that you should be aware of, either, politically, nationally, and at the company level, industry level as well. It's important, and it demonstrates, again, that you've prepared and you're informed and you're taking this seriously and you're not wasting someone's time. In terms of being your best self here, I mean, a lot of this stuff is intuitive, but it's worth mentioning. Take the time to dress appropriately. Know, you can ask not the hiring manager, your HR contact, what the dress code is, and make sure you don't want to show up in a 3-piece suit when everybody's wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, right? And so really think about how you can dress the part and make your interviewer feel comfortable and yourself feel comfortable. Maintain enthusiasm and passion. Do not make it seem like you are doing this interview because you're checking a box. Like, nobody wants to waste their time, and you can pick up on that right away. And so be excited. Like I said, even if you're not excited about the job itself, you should be excited that you have an interview. They're few and far between. And it's a great opportunity to practice and sharpen your interviewing skills. Make sure you keep it conversational. It's really hard to stay engaged to what someone's saying, even if it's super interesting, if they're talking for more than like 5 minutes at a time. And so try to ask questions, listen to the interviewer, pause so they can ask questions. I think the rest of this stuff we've talked about. Another important thing, sometimes, especially if you're going for like a technical job or engineering job, you tend to forget, but your soft skills and your EQ, your emotional intelligence, is just as important as your functional analytical skills. There's very few jobs out there where you are working in an office by yourself and don't have to interact with other people. Even if you're on the engineering side, on the dev teams, it's all collaborative environments. And so your employers want to know that you know how to communicate, you know how to read people, you know how to work with other people. And that can come through in your body language, the way that you're responding to questions, the way that you're asking questions. And so be mindful of that. I think that's
just to to just tag team on that, Neeti, I think your point of practice is so important. A good way to do it is tape yourself on the phone or talk in front of the mirror, right? If you're not comfortable to practice your story or interview questions in front of your husband, wife, friend, do it on your own. Do it in front of the mirror or tape yourself and go back and view it and see where you tend to digress and where you don't.
Absolutely. All right, I'll turn it over to Meenakshi to talk about acceptance.
Yeah, so now what happens, right? You get the job. Maybe you get 2 jobs and you get 3 jobs. So how do you evaluate the choices? In a perfect world, you would get all 5 jobs that you've applied to, provide you with an offer at the same time with the same deadline. But we're not in a perfect world, we know that. So how do you evaluate your choices if they're not all your choices? Create a criteria matrix. What is important to you, right? What drives you? What is your ultimate goal? Will this job allow you to make an incremental step towards your ultimate dream job, or is it really your dream job? Is compensation important to you? Is the vision and the philosophy of the company important to you? Are you someone who constantly wants to be challenged and learn and constantly wants to learn on a job? Is it a steep learning curve versus a fairly undulated learning curve, right? What drives you? Each of you is unique. It's important to determine your own unique criteria to make that decision, because then it's an informed decision. And come April or May, and you've made this choice and you get suddenly a big surge of FOMO, you can go back to this paper with weighted averages and say, you know what, I made this decision in an educated space. I was introspective. I thought about my criteria. It's the right decision. Talk to current employees, team members. See if anyone in your network is a former employee, right? Maybe they were a former employee and they left. So they're going to be far more authentic and honest in their feedback. Always negotiate. There's always something on the table for you. So do not be fearful of that. Again, the worst that can happen is they say no, but temper your negotiation. So don't go back 3 times and negotiate. Think of what your numbers are. Think of what's important to you and negotiate on the first round and see where you can flex and move and adjust. And this is coming back again to what is important to you. Neeti, do you want to take on rejection or shall I continue?
You can continue.
Okay, but then you don't get the job, right? And you've invested so much. You've gone through all these steps to get the job and you don't get it. And you fall into a slump, right? Don't do that. It's, again, think about it. It's easy to do that. Allow yourself, I say, give yourself an afternoon. Woe is me, crawl into bed and feel bad for yourself, but then bounce right back because the job search isn't over, right? And you still want to thank all those who participated in the process because they still believed in you and felt that, you know, you had the opportunity to do this. This is not personal. It's just not the right fit, and that's okay. Take a pragmatic overview of yourself, ask for feedback, understand where you might have slipped or not met their criteria and needs, and evaluate and fill in those gaps if you can. Let the point of contact that you have been connecting with throughout this, let them know that you're interested in future opportunities. I always say when they invite you for an interview, they're on your side. They want you to succeed. They're not going to waste their time. They haven't invited you because you're a random person out there. They think that you're well aligned with this job, which means you could potentially be well aligned with another job that more firmly aligns with your skills. Learn from the feedback, apply the lessons, and keep moving ahead. But I think we're at time now, so I'm going to pass it over because I believe we have a lot of questions in the queue. And then, of course, recap.
All right, thank you. And it has been a fantastic discussion. I can tell you that I can relate to a lot of things working in a large corporation like AT&T for about 20 plus years. Especially the networking part. When I first started my career, I always used to think, oh, once you get into a company, it's all going to happen miraculously. But as my experience, as I kind of get more and more experience, I'm realizing how networking is important, not just outside, but even within the company to make progress or change your jobs. So I think both of you kind of hit the nail right on the head. Fantastic discussion. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we want to get into the audience questions. There are some very good questions from the audience. I'm going to start with a very simple one and then get into the more complex and long questions. So the first one is, what font size and format would you recommend to avoid the resume get off in ATS application tracking system?
I'm happy to take that. Or Niti, definitely don't do anything smaller than an 11 size font, because you don't want your hiring manager or the screener to be reading it with a magnifying glass. I usually like staying with the cleaner, simpler fonts like Calibri, Arial, Times New Roman. Stick with those. Make sure that you use the same font across the entire resume. Also make sure, and this is so crucial because your resume is kind of your first point of contact, make sure that everything that needs to be left aligned is left aligned. Everything that is right aligned needs to be right aligned. Formatting, I cannot stress enough how important formatting is, because you look at something visually and if things are off, you're like, they're not detail oriented. If they're not able to get their resume formatted correctly, how would they be specific with their job, correct? So just in terms of formatting, look at it with a fine editing eye.
Perfect. Thank you. So the second question, in an interview, how do you really present yourself as an agile or adaptable person? What techniques or tips would you give for someone to present themselves as an agile or adaptable person?
I can take that one. I would definitely, this is a tricky one because you definitely don't want to present yourself as a jack of all trades and I can do anything and I've done everything, because then they don't really get a sense of where your strengths are and what you're really actually good at. And so I tell a lot of young professionals this all the time when they're working on their resume and they're trying to put in there every single thing they've ever done or touched. It starts to get less and less meaningful when you have like 15 bullet points there. And so I think in the interview, it's best to focus on your strengths, focus on the job description, and in maybe a specific example, you can talk about how you started down one path, but you were able to pivot and take on more responsibility, either because you were a strong part of the team, you were recognized as a leader, you saw an opportunity to help your teammates, but give a very specific example about that. And I think just one example can go very far in terms of communicating that you're agile and that you're willing to kind of roll up your sleeves and pitch in. And think about if that's what the company is actually values. Some companies don't value that. If you're interviewing for like an AT&T or very big company with very defined roles, then perhaps being able to do a lot of different things and be agile is not as critical as if you're interviewing for a startup or a mid-sized company who is just really starting to get, a focus and grip on their organizational structure. And you may be asked to wear multiple hats and you may be asked to pivot, as new opportunities and priorities arise. So definitely think about the situation in terms of how much you stress that. And then, like I said, specific examples go a long way.
Okay, thank you. So the third question, this is an interesting question. Between resume and LinkedIn, what details should we put on one versus the other? Since we need to tailor resume for each job, how important is it to have same language, or I should say content, between resume and LinkedIn? It's really two questions in one question.
So I can start off, and then Niti, feel free to jump in. A LinkedIn, like I said, is your book cover, right? So it's not going to have the detail that the resume does, but it's going to have the highlights. What do you want to highlight about yourself? Do you want to position yourself again, like as someone who's an expert in marketing? Do you want to position yourself as someone who's an expert in operations, or a combination of both? In which case, use LinkedIn as the launching pad to do that. You can do that in your little bio, the synopsis. I am an operations and marketing expert with so many years in this and this. Again, to Niti's point that she mentioned before, don't spread yourself thin, right? Talk about your domain expertise. Talk about where you really lean into the skill set that the jobs that you're looking for demand. You do not have to have bullet points under every job function and company in LinkedIn, but it would be nice if you could highlight, what did I achieve during my time there, and move on. Your resume is, again, a list of your accomplishments that you're most proud of that showcase your expertise. So it is a more extrapolated version of LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing to call out that you're not going to modify your LinkedIn profile for every job opportunity or function, but your resume you should look at with a critical eye through the lens of the job description and the industry and what you're applying for, and make sure that it's relevant. So you may need to tweak, a few things here and there. Like I have a couple different versions of my resume. One just in general, someone asks me for my resume, and then one, specific. I have a background in financial services, so specific to financial services, and then one specific to other industries, or not specific, but one that covers other industries. And so think about, your LinkedIn is kind of like Meenakshi said, your book cover, your resume, you may have different flavors, chapters, versions of, because that is a little bit more specific to what you're applying for.
Great way of differentiating between how to handle LinkedIn versus resume. Honestly, I never thought about it myself. So great piece of advice. Thank you. So the next question, do you recommend applying for jobs even though you do not have a contact within the company, or you never got any informational interview from someone within the company? So basically, if you don't have any network inside the company, is it even worth applying it, or just first try to find a contact and try to get an informational interview before you apply for the job?
So if there's a deadline for the job, you always have a first mover advantage. I know it feels like you're dropping, and again, Niti, you explained it so well, right? With Indeed and Crunchbase, you feel like you're just throwing darts. So be focused and strategic. And this is, again, where your resume, use the words from the job description so that you can potentially move past the screener. However, don't end on that, right? Don't just drop in your resume and apply. So my point, yes, definitely apply, but look to see if you can still make contacts, even post-application. Your conversations don't have to end before you apply. They can continue after you've applied, and you can continue to build your network of advocates after. So yes, apply as soon as you can, only because there is always a first mover advantage. 2, find ways to connect with people. Use common denominators, right? It could be your alma mater from undergrad. It could be your alma mater from your graduate school. It could be that you both have worked for the same company. You could find something in common. Join the LinkedIn groups that people would be part of, so you can send those free messages and don't have to pay the exorbitant price for premium, right? So yes, apply, even if you don't have a network. However, we all know that it helps to have an advocate in the company. So continue to seek that out.
Yeah, and I would say also, don't assume that you don't have a network in the company just because you can't think of anyone or you feel like you don't know anyone. Like, definitely do your research on LinkedIn and see how you might be connected to someone in the company. It may not be someone in the, the group that you're trying to or that you've submitted your resume for. But even just saying, I'm interested in a position, love to get your thoughts on the company and your experiences there, and send that note to connect. Like, you never know what doors that's going to open for you. So definitely, like Meenakshi said, apply, you should always apply, and then continue doing your research and your legwork after that.
All right, so we got 3 minutes and 3 questions left. So I'm going to go a little bit
Great.
fast. In cover letter, how do you show transition in career, especially when you have 1 to 2 years of gap? And also, let's say you're transitioning from journalism to teaching to accounting, etc.
I can answer this one because I had to do it for my own career. I took a gap, both to go to business school for 2 years full time. And a lot of people wondered, why now? Why did you go? Because I didn't do a big career switch. And so that was one one gap that I had to explain. The other one was after I had my first kid, I took over a year off just to be full-time stay-at-home mom. And so explaining those things, I think, is important, but I think the decision, what I like to focus is on what was the catalyst, what was the influence that has now caused you to come back into the workforce, right? Like, what was it that sparked you to say, now's the time for me to take this career shift or dive back into industry or, start to pick up my job search? I think that's the more important thing. I think everyone understands and realizes that life happens, gaps happen, but getting back into it after a gap and explaining that part of it, I think is, at least as a hiring manager, that's what I tend to focus on.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great piece of advice. So how do companies actually view candidates who leave their first job within the first year?
I can
Go ahead, Nathan.
I actually just last week for a client interviewed someone who literally every 6 months has moved jobs within the same organization. And, there's questions of whether she was kind of a ladder climber or, why she switched jobs so frequently. And she had a really good explanation for it. There was a series of mergers and acquisitions, and the organization kept restructuring the team. And so she had to keep taking on different roles. And so I think that if there is a compelling reason why you left your first job, usually there is, you don't just get a job and then leave after 9 months for no reason. I think, just be honest about it. I left my first job after B school in a year because it was not my dream job. I graduated at the height of the recession in 2009. I took a job because I needed to have a job. That's my personality. But it wasn't my dream job. And I tell people that all the time when they look at my resume and they see that I was only at Hilton for a year. I say, yeah, well, something came up that I was much more passionate about after a year, and I took it. I took the opportunity, and I think that's 100% fine. Now, if you're like a serial job jumper and like you just do it because you get bored, that's something you need to think about in terms of like your entire career path and what you're trying to do. But I think, an example or 1 or 2 instances where you didn't stay long in a role is I would explain it and move on if someone asks about it.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I completely agree with Neethi. And also when you explain that transition, make sure you spin it as Neethi had done with her own role, that I found that I was more passionate about something else, right? So don't talk down about the job that you were in. Think about how you can transition in a positive way. I learned from this job XYZ, and I moved to this role because I was more passionate.
That's excellent. I think we are at the end of our time. So we have covered lots of useful stuff. In our first session, in our second session, we talked about networking, how to brand yourself, get a job. Now that you got your job, how do you negotiate your salary? That is going to be the third session, which is going to be starting in 30 seconds. So I want to, on behalf of Indo-American Community Services, I want to thank Neethi Patel and Meenakshi Dash for your valuable time on a Saturday. Taking time off from your family is not very easy. especially on
pleasure.
Saturday. And then nice weather. It's 60 degrees here, and I'm sure it's pretty good weather in Chicago too. So thank you all so much, and really, really appreciate your time once again on behalf of Indo-American Community Services and all the participants. Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Best of luck to all of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. In another few minutes, we'll be starting our next session. And the next session would be on digital networking and compensation negotiation. And to present that, Claudia Miller will be here shortly. And in the meantime, we'll just wait for a couple of minutes so that she can join and we can get started on the session. Good afternoon, Claudia.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Me too, and similarly. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual career counseling and resume review event by Indo-American Community Service. I'm Ratnavel, and I will be hosting this event for you today. Today, we are going to discuss on digital networking and compensation negotiation, and we have Claudia Miller for that. Let me give a little bit of info about Claudia. Claudia is a career and negotiation strategist, and she helps serious professionals secure dream jobs with dream salaries at their dream companies, including fast-growing startups, rockstar mid-sized companies, and Fortune 500 companies like Amazon, Google, and Facebook. Some even received salary increases of up to $50,000. Business Insider selected her as one of the top most innovative career coaches of 2020, and her work has been featured in Forbes, MSNBC, Yahoo Finance, as well as other major outlets. I'm very excited for this session today because at the end of the day, everybody works for a salary, right? So
Yes.
money is the key thing, and we have Claudia here to talk about how she can get you secured a wonderful salary. Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to turn over to Claudia.
Thank you.
Claudia, do you want to present?
Yes. Are you presenting the slides or am I presenting those slides?
Do you want to, or I can go? I
Yeah,
can
you
go.
can, if you can present them.
Sure, definitely. I will.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone. So as mentioned, we're going to talk about salary negotiation. And I just wanted to give everyone a full overview just about myself. I know you just heard a little bit about my background, but specifically towards salary negotiation. I help professionals make anywhere between 10, 20, 30, 40, and even $50,000 salary increases, even during COVID. So there's a specific strategy to it. It's very conversational. It's non-confrontational. And it's in a way that doesn't position you as pushy or greedy. So once we share the slides, I'm going to walk you through on how to do this, how to figure out what you're worth in the marketplace, and how to start having those conversations. So on the second slide about me, like I mentioned, I've worked across multiple industries. So not only technology, sales, marketing, but I've also worked with engineering, as well as the artificial and data machine learning space, which is currently growing and booming. And I've worked with a lot of great clients, universities, companies, and individual professionals that are looking to move to the next step in their career and are looking to make that change and especially make that jump in their careers. So on the next slide. So some quick facts. This is specifically towards salary negotiation. 43% of respondents have asked for a raise, according to a pay scale survey that was generated and done. And of those, 57 of the respondents who have never asked for a raise say they didn't because either an employee gave them a raise before they needed to ask for one, or they're uncomfortable negotiating, or they didn't want to be perceived as pushy. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because a lot of us and a lot of people have this perception or myth that if they were to negotiate their salary, it's going to set them apart or it's going to have them lose that job opportunity or that job offer. And I'm here to tell you, you're not, and that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with salary negotiation. You're not alone, but I'm going to show you quick ways on how you can do it effectively and successfully. So on the next slide, and the other interesting fact is that 23% of men say they feel uncomfortable negotiating, whereas women, it was 31%. So men are more likely to negotiate than women. But what I really found interesting is, and even C-suite executives, I've worked with a lot of SVPs, VPs, CEOs, and they've come to me because they feel uncomfortable negotiating for themselves. Now they can negotiate contracts and deals, but when it comes to themselves, it's very hard. And again, this is very common. Even if you're just graduating or starting out your first entry-level job, or maybe in an internship, or you're 15, 20, 30 years within the industry, just know that it's very common to feel uncomfortable. But a lot of that uncomfortableness happens because, one, we don't negotiate our salary every day, or let alone every month or every year or every 5 years. And as you can see, it could be 20, 30 years in the industry and you have yet to negotiate your salary. But not negotiating your salary is costing you on average of $500,000 in your career. And that's if you're making around $50,000. So if you're making more than that currently without negotiating your salary, you're leaving even more money on the table. So as years pass by, it accumulates. And of course, it kind of increases that magnitude of money that you're leaving on the table that you could have easily accessed if you had just negotiated your salary. So on the next slide, according to pay scale, 75% of people who ask for a raise get a raise. So hopefully this is a great motivator to actually negotiate your salary, because many people don't. But as you can see, based on the survey and the data, 75% of people who actually negotiated their raise got that raise, and you could be part of that 75%. So on the next slide. So to get started, we're going to talk about negotiating our salary, but negotiating our salary also through this process, you're going to know how to get noticed and promoted, how to accelerate your salary as well. So you'll be able to do these three things all at once with what I'm going to talk about right now. So when I talk about negotiation, there are multiple aspects that you can negotiate, not just your salary. You can negotiate your title, your position, start time flexibility, commission rate, stock options, 401k match, sign-on bonus, phone bill allowance, especially now that we're working from home, as well as phone and even, materials for your office. So I know some clients have negotiated for their desk and they need a new monitor and they need their space and all of these extra items that are going to have to be needed in order for them to work efficiently and effectively at home. So the companies have paid for that, as well as tuition reimbursement, But get creative when negotiating the offer. It's not just your salary, but there are many multiple aspects and benefits that you can be negotiating that where you can really increase your total payout and of course all your benefits that can be added to it. So how do you negotiate successfully? So here are the 6 skills really needed to negotiate your salary. You need to be an effective speaker. You need to be a great listener. You need to have self-confidence. You need to be patient, always be respectful, and it has to be surrounded through value. I always say that when you negotiate your salary, for example, if they're offering you 50,000, but you're looking to make 100,000, you don't go into the HR person or the hiring manager said, I know you offered me 50,000, but I'm looking for 100,000 and be very combative. That's not how it works. You want to be respectful. You're still talking to another person, and you want to make sure that it's a collaborative environment in a conversation, because they're more likely to be able to give you that salary increase when it comes, as a collaboration aspect, and the other party feels like they have a say in it. So being prepared and what I'm going to walk through you is going to help you increase your confidence. It's going to help you increase your outcomes and your knowledge. And that's very important. The reason why also a lot of people don't negotiate their salary is because they don't feel confident. And they don't feel confident because they're not prepared. They don't have the knowledge. They didn't do the research. They didn't do a lot of the work that happens behind the scenes that therefore impacts their outcomes. So if you want to avoid all of it, put a lot of time beforehand, practice it, do your research, and I promise you, you're going to feel a lot more confident, and that confidence is going to exude through the conversation. That's going to set you up for success as opposed to failure. So a lot of salary negotiation is related to mastering your inner game. That's what I mean by that is your mindset. If you come in thinking negatively, you will receive negative results. And I'm a big believer of that. And like I mentioned, confidence is a huge factor in negotiating your salary, that you want to make sure you do a lot of this preparation in order for you to be in your full potential self and feel your most confident. And therefore you're able to, again, have more leverage and be able to have a conversation around your salary. So according to PayScale, 44% of workers with high job satisfaction said they received the salary they asked for. So if you're working at a company, the more you negotiate, the more it increases your job satisfaction. So that way, another reason for you to really negotiate your salary. So one of the things that I always talk about is establishing your whatnot and your betnot. And what that means is whatnot stands for worst alternative to a negotiated agreement, and betnot stands for best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Before you start your negotiation, you need to talk about, and you need to talk to yourself and really come to a conclusion of what is the lowest number you're willing to accept. And if they're not even able to match your salary, what other benefits can you include that you'll be okay with that total compensation? So for example, if you want to make $80,000, $90,000, then you need to say, and you need to establish that number. All right, the lowest I'm willing to move into a specific role or the next step in my career is, if I'm currently making 60,000, I want to make that jump to 80,000. I want to make sure that that's my worst alternative negotiated agreement. But let's just say that they can offer 70,000 and they give me a $10,000 sign-on bonus. I'm willing to take that. And you need to have a lot of this preparation beforehand, because if they were to ask you, we can't give you 80, but we can give you 70. Is there anything else that we can do that we might be able to get closer to that number? You want to be prepared with ideas. Now, typically the negotiating party, which in this case might be the HR person or the hiring manager, they typically will get creative if you mention that in the conversation, but you also want to help. And if they ask for your input, you always want to be ready. And as for your best alternative, of course, it's what you want, like your ideal situation. If you have, let's just say you're making, again, that $50,000, $60,000 and they offer you 100,000, then that's even great, but you still want to negotiate. Even if they provide you with like the best salary out there, there's still opportunity to negotiate, because typically and very unlikely they offer you the top range of that salary. So that means that there's still money on the table that you can get access to. And of course, you can always negotiate other benefits besides your salary. If you're looking for tuition reimbursement, maybe you want to go get your master's degree, or you want to take certifications in order to stay more agile and skilled, you can discuss that. Is there an allowance that I can have for professional development? I'm looking to take these certification and courses in the next year. Is there a way that we can include a $10,000 allowance that I can utilize towards my professional development? That's another way that you can negotiate. And of course, when you have your best alternative, in your ideal world, what would be included in that? So talk about the other benefits. So if they do give you that salary or one other benefits, you can still negotiate the other items that you already have listed out beforehand. And this is the benefit of being prepared. So this is a quick worksheet. You can take a picture of it. So you can always line up, okay, here's what I currently have. And also look at your benefits. What are you paying for your health insurance? What is your employer paying? What is that 401k match? Do you have tuition reimbursement? Do you get free access to online portals or tools such as LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, or whatever that may be? Really list out all your benefits and then say, okay, worst alternative, best alternative, and here's everything listed out, so that way you have it in one pager. So when you're having this conversation, whether it be on video or on a phone call, you can easily access this and be able to start having those conversations. So the next is how to become so good they can't deny you. So there's a art and science to it. You don't just ask for an extra 30, 50,000. It happens beforehand. And I'll go into more details in our next slide. So one of the things you can do to really accelerate and increase your worth is by doing a lot of the work beforehand. During the resume and your job searching and your interviewing, you want to position yourself as the top candidate, but you also want to show proof. A lot of people can talk about it, but very few people can show it. And here's what I mean. I recommend you start a praise folder. And what that is a specific folder that you create in your personal email. So for example, if a client or a team member or your manager says, hey, by the way, great job. Because of this, you were able to help us, meet the project on time, and we were still be able to stay within budget. And we had very minimal errors, and the user experience is phenomenal. We're getting a lot of conversion because of the work that you did. All of those achievements, all those praises that you're receiving from very different multiple outlets, you want to save that and email it to yourself to your personal email. The reason I say personal email is because if you were to leave that company, you still want to have access to all those great achievements and praises that you've been getting. So 2-3 years down the line, you might be able to be at an interview and say, well, what do others what are the top 3 skills, or how would people define your 3 skill sets, how people would describe you? Then you can say, well, here are the top 3 descriptions that people will say about me, but actually let me show you. Here is a praise that I received from our director or from our VP or SVP, or this is one of our clients that we had a contract value of 150 million with them. And they were so happy with the work that I did for them that they asked me to be part of their next project, and they hand selected me. All of a sudden, that speaks more than I think that they would describe me in these different ways. So that's why it's important to start a praise folder. Next is doing a complete write-up or summary of events and accomplishments. We all work on multiple projects that we never can remember everything. I bet you if I ask you, what project did you work on 3 months ago? Would you even be able to say it? Or what stage were you in that project 3 months ago? There's just so many things going on. So the write-up summary is just a quick one-sheeter where you talk about what the project is, why were you part of this project? Does it have leadership visibility? Is this because you had problems? The customer, there was a lot of complaints. Is this because we're losing money? Is there a bottleneck in processes? Are we delayed in timeline? Why are we working on this project? What prompted this project to come into fruition? Then decide, well, some of the objectives are, here's how we're going to measure success. Here's what I did. Maybe these are some challenges and obstacles we came across during the project, and here are the solutions, and here are some learning opportunities of here's how I would improve it if I were to do this project afterwards. Why this is important is because, one, you're not going to remember every single project and everything or all the details from that specific project, and neither is your manager. So when it comes to year-end review, you want to say, hey, manager, it's been a great year. I know when we originally 12 months ago, we discussed how we're going to measure my success, and I know my objectives and my KRAs. So based off of that, here's a list of all the projects that I've worked on. And what I'm most proud of are these top 3 projects that, you can shuffle through them and then remind them of everything that you did. All of a sudden, you're a high value candidate as opposed to someone that, like I think that usually people just remember the last 1 or 2, maybe 3 projects that you've worked on, but they're not necessarily going to know everything that you did in that role. Most managers don't always know everything you did on that role because they expect for you to do your work and then be able to work efficiently and effectively while achieving business needs. So this is why the write-up is very important. Also, when you're interviewing, you can mention, depending on what their objective is for that role, you can say, actually, I'm glad that you brought that up. And I know you're looking to increase, user experience. I actually have some examples of some of the work that I've done in my past, roles or in my past few years. Here, the user experience involved X, and in this project, it involved Y. So as you can see, I have a very comprehensive understanding of variables that impact user experience, and I'll be able to bring on my knowledge and expertise and bring it to this next project that you're really looking to elevate. That's also going to help you gain that competitive edge. Again, it all makes it easier for you, makes it easier for the interviewer or your current manager if you're looking to get promoted within or get that salary increase. So another thing is the achievement portfolio is everything put together. You want to join committees. Of course, IACS is a great way because you're also connecting with people. You get to tap into that network, get to learn from them. What are best practices? Always invest in yourself, professional development, always keep proof so that way you can share with your HR person or the boss. Because if our manager were to leave and you get a new manager, you don't want to have to repeat everything that you've done or all the certifications you've had. They can easily access that through your folder or your personal file that you have already submitted with your HR or your previous manager. And of course, reach out to other people in your department so that way you can be a resource and you can understand a little bit more about the entire process and not just your own. So one recommendation I have is write down one thing you can do today to help you accelerate your career and increase your worth. The easiest is probably starting a praise folder and just going through there and then start emailing it to your personal file. Now you can start your summary objective of giving a quick recap about the projects that you've worked on. So planning for the takeover. So here's where I'm talking about more about the salary negotiation aspect. So what you want to do is research your industry and your salary range and benefits. So where do you get that? Glassdoor is a really great resource. It gives you a little bit of an overview of what you can expect as in salary, benefits, what the range should be. Another thing is to reach out to industry specific organizations where they have some information about what specifically are those salary ranges and even by location. And another thing you could do is reach out to people that have been in your role previously. If you go 2 levels up, they're more likely to be honest with you with what they were used to get paid or what they used to pay their employees. So for example, if I am an analyst, I might reach out to a manager or director, maybe a member of IACS and say, hey, I noticed that you used to be an analyst and or a senior analyst, and I'm looking to move up into the next role. I want to get a better understanding of what salary range I should be looking. Would you mind sharing with me, like, what is the salary range for these specific roles, specifically in the tech industry or maybe within the Chicagoland area, wherever you're located? And they're more likely to give you that range just because they're already way above it and they're no longer closer to what they were making previously. So they're more likely to be honest than someone that is currently in that role because they don't want you to know how much they're making. Next is creating your desired salary. So for example, you know a job pays anywhere between 50 to 100,000, but you only want to take a job if it makes at least 70,000. So when they ask you for a salary range, say, based on my research and what the market is paying and based on my background experience and, the responsibilities that are related to this role, I'm looking for a salary range between 70 and 90,000. Or you could even say between 75 to 90,000, because they know if you go to the low end, that's still a salary that you'd be interested in. And then that, again, it helps you make those salary increases as opposed to you saying, well, I know the salary pays 50 to 100,000. And then that's just a big discrepancy. Usually on average, I would say leave anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 within that range. Next is practicing. It's uncomfortable to negotiate your salary, especially if this is your first time. Practice having that conversation, whether it's with your family member or partner. I have clients practicing with their dogs or their pets. If you're so uncomfortable, practicing with a friend or someone, but I highly recommend, or you can look at yourself in the mirror and then see your reaction, see if you have any nervous tics. Do you tend to look up when you get nervous? Do you get jazz hands and talk too much? Really knowing how to calm your nerves and understanding, how is your tone? Do you sound confident or are you shaky? Do you tend to lower your voice? Those are all other things that are indicators of your confidence. So you want to make sure you prepare and practice. Also, just writing down some of the questions or common salary negotiation questions. Some people may ask, oh, what are you currently making? Or what is your desired salary range? Or before we move forward, I wanted to make sure, is this salary range adequate for you? You want to make sure if they were to give you a range, how are you going to respond to that? And then when possible, do not disclose your current salary. If you're moving to the next step in your career, what you're currently making should not be any indicator of what the next role should be. Because if there is a 50 or an 80% increase in responsibilities, maybe you're managing a team of 10 and the next role you're managing a team of 50, you definitely should not take anything like a 5-10% increase in salary. You should be looking to what the market is paying for a role with that type of responsibilities. So when in doubt, give a person a salary range, but don't give them what you're currently making. And at the end, this is a conversation you're having with another person. This is when respect comes into it. It's a lot of collaboration. And you want to make sure that you don't come out as confrontational. And, a quick way you can do this is by saying, I'm actually looking for a job within the salary range between 80 to 100,000. And the current offer is at 70,000. Is there a way we can close that gap? And then let them get creative. They can give you a sign-on bonus. Maybe they can give you more stock, maybe some RSUs, maybe professional development allowance. I mean, there's just multitude of ways they can do that. And again, it helps them feel that they have power and say into this conversation and this negotiation, as opposed to you cornering them saying, no, I want $80,000 to $90,000 in salary. So this is another way that you can tackle the salary negotiation conversation. So one quick tip is to pretend you're making a case for someone else, like a friend or a family member. It's hard to always look into ourselves or sell ourselves. So if you want, you can talk about like what you're currently making, your responsibilities, and then come back, whether it's the same later that day or the next day, and say, all right, I'm going to pretend this is my friend that has done all of this and is looking to make the salary. How would I make that case for them of why they should ask for that? And then why they are of that value and they can provide this insight and expertise to the specific role. So some false myths, negotiating your salary makes you sound greedy, ungrateful, or entitled, makes you sound aggressive, puts your job at jeopardy at the right companies, and makes your manager think less of you. These are all false. If you lose a job because you're negotiating your salary, that's typically a red flag from either from the recruiter or the hiring manager, or from the company in itself, because that's how you're going to be treated. They're going to give you 1% to 2% salary increases, if that. And if you argue, they pull a job offer, they fire you. That's not an environment you want to work in. Typically, that people negotiate for their salary tend to be high performers. tend to bring more value to the company. And I know that if you're negotiating salary for yourself, you're also going to fight and protect the company. So if you're a manager or you're dealing with a lot of contracts or vendors, I can trust in you because you negotiate for your salary, then I can trust that you're going to do the same thing for the company. So it actually positions you as a high value candidate and employee, as opposed to making you sound greedy. People typically don't do that, and people plan for it. So if I'm hiring for a role and I can pay anywhere between 60 to 80,000, if you're a really great interviewer, maybe I would give you, 65 or 70, or maybe 75,000. I'm not going to give you the top range because if you negotiate, I still have a wiggle room. So let's just say I offer you 65 and you ask for 75, then I'll, if I think you made a great business case, then I'll offer that because my range was up to 80,000 anyway. So I'm still within budget. So just remember, visibility plus recognition equals advancement and salary increases. Start tracking all your accomplishments, everything that you've done, and then start communicating that. And like I said, that's how you create your achievement portfolio. Share that with your current manager or share that with the interviewer to really showcase that your expertise. And honestly, no one else is doing this. People talk about their experiences, but very little people show what they've done. And then we can go to the digital networking. I think it's the next slide.
Sure, definitely, Claudia.
Thank you. So next, I'm going to talk about digital networking to get you noticed while working from home. Now, most of us could probably connect with people in our offices or maybe attend some networking events or some extracurricular activities afterwards, maybe a book club that you may have at your company. But because everything we've gone remote, you have to get a little bit more strategic on how to get noticed and start networking digitally. One of the things that you can do is do your research. And I'm going to talk more in depth, but even if you're an introvert, start looking at where are you most comfortable with. If you're uncomfortable getting on Zoom videos, then you can always suggest a phone call. So for digital networking, here's what you can expect. How to brand yourself on LinkedIn to land you the jobs you want. How to network effectively, even if you're not good at networking or don't have a network. And what questions to ask during your virtual meetup that will help you build stronger relationships to get you what you want. So some interesting quick facts, 85% of positions are filled through networking. So you see most of those job postings out there. There's still a lot of jobs that never get posted. So networking helps you tap into that unforeseen job market that you can tap into if you were to have had a network. 95% of professionals consider face-to-face communication vital for long-term business. 38% of professionals find it difficult to maintain their business relationships, and 70% of people find a job through connections in a company. So here again, a lot of the benefits that come from networking and a lot of business sales and relationships are filled to that, cultivating those relationships as well. So other benefits of networking, of course, it makes you noticeable. It helps you provide more opportunities, helps reassess your qualifications, helps you tap into other networks or best practices of maybe people that are in the same role, but they're doing different things. And it also develops self-confidence. And of course, benefits are long, but here's just a quick snapshot of that. So how to brand yourself on LinkedIn to land you the jobs you want. So you want to make sure you're branding yourself the right way on LinkedIn. You want to think about your experience, your background, and how you want to be branded. One of the things that I see on people's LinkedIn profile is their headline. So that's your name, and under it, it has like a, typically people have their role at Y company. So for example, I am a career coach at Claudia T. Miller Career Coaching. That doesn't give me anything. Instead, I am a career coach and a resume writer. I help professionals land, $30,000 to $50,000 salary increases, featured in Forbes Business Insider. I'm giving you more information. I'm rebranding myself, not just as a career coach, but a career coach that has gotten media attention, a career coach that focuses on salary negotiation and does resume writing. You want to do the same for yourself. So if you're a let's just say a solutions architect, and you don't want to put solutions architect at Google. I mean, that's a great company, but so what? There are multiple solutions architect at Google. Why should I hire you in comparison to the 1,200 applicants that are applying to the same job? Well, when you say I'm a solutions architect with a background in artificial intelligence, data machine learning, data analytics, and has created and has worked with one of the top brands or has worked with companies with over $1 billion in revenue, all of a sudden you are standing out from all the other solution architects. So you want to be specific. You want to capture their attention. Just because when recruiters are doing a search for talent, they type in specific keywords, and it's almost like a Google search. They're looking at a list of people. And if you just have your role as analyst at Walgreens, I'm going to see a whole bunch of analysts at CVS, analysts at at a pharmaceutical company. I mean, there's no one's really standing out. You want to make sure your profile stands out. So you want to make sure you're branding yourself for the jobs you want. Again, do not use your headline as your title and your company. Analyst at Walgreens, like I mentioned, please do not do that. Find other ways to sell yourself or rebrand you for the jobs you are looking for. So here's an example of what everyone else is doing. Like I said, here I did a quick search on research assistant. And then we saw research assistant at Rush, research assistant at DePaul, research assistant at Northwestern. If I was looking to hire a research assistant, no one really here is standing out. They're all part of universities. They all have, similar roles. I mean, I would maybe start clicking at start from the top. But if there was someone that had been at a research assistant with experience in, chemistry and biology or different types of engineering, then that would capture more attention if that's what I'm looking for, as opposed to something so generic as research assistant. Your job title doesn't tell me anything of what you can do for me or for the company. So here's an example of a client that I had. They were in supply chain management, and he just said supply chain management at blank company. Once I started working with him, we changed it to global materials and supply chain management leader with 12 plus years of experience, manages over $109 million in inventory. Now, this person is going to stand out from all the other supply chain managers that are probably going to say supply chain manager at blank company. So this is how concrete and specific I want you to be and be able to rebrand themselves, because this person is now looking to move up in the level of like on the executive C-suite, senior director and VP level. And now this is position him as such, as opposed to just a supply chain manager. So how do you network effectively, even if you're not good at networking or just don't have a network? So the most effective ways to use LinkedIn is, for networking, job searching, hiring, company research, and of course, connecting with future mentors, thought leaders, or authors. So people love helping other people. I mean, even IACS was founded on, a lot of the founding members wanted to help other people, especially, in the technology industry. How do you navigate so many aspects of going into the professional realm, especially around technology? I'm here making sure that I help a lot of you negotiate your salary, do career coaching, maybe give your resume review. I'm doing this because I want to be able to help you. There are other people that want to help as well. And I'm sure some of you do too. If someone to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm about to graduate high school and I'm about to go to your college that you went to, would you be available for a 30-minute conversation? I want to know how to navigate the space, and I'm about to go into the same major you did. Do you have any recommendations on how, what groups or events I should be attending? Most of you would say yes, because it's specific, concrete, and you want to be able to help someone. And it's something that you can help on. So one of the things that you want to do when you want people to help you is you want to be quick, detailed, and to the point. Don't give them a whole novel of who you are. People at this point don't care. They want to make sure, what is your objective or intention, and can I help? I don't want to get on a call with you if I can't help you. Probably I can recommend you to someone, but personally I won't be able to. So be quick to the point. Do not use words like pick your brain. To me, that doesn't tell me anything. If you were to reach out to say, Claudia, I'm job searching, can I pick your brain? I have no idea what you're going to ask me or what we're going to talk about. Are you going to ask me about, maybe how to be a hairstylist? I don't know much about that industry or how to be a better hairstylist. I'm not a good fit for you. Or maybe you're a recent graduate looking to become a CEO at a startup. I'm not going to be able to help you with that, just because it's very difficult to do, especially with no experience, and it's not something that's aligned. I need more than just pick your brain. Do not leave the person wondering where you're going to be talking about. Again, this is where it's very specific. I am a current analyst looking to break or pivot into a manager role as a first-time manager. I saw that you were able to do this. I would love to, tap into or get more insights and expertise on how you were able to navigate this. And I would appreciate 20, 30 minutes of your time so I can ask you questions. If you're too busy, I'd be happy to send you those questions. Again, I know what you're going to ask me about. I know what we're going to talk about. I know that you did your research. And if I'm an introvert as well, you can send me those email questions and I'd be more than happy to respond. Again, it's very specific. There's no vagueness to it. Do not make the person work. If you're asking for a favor, don't make the person doing you the favor do the work. Don't say, tell me a time that works best for you. One thing I would say is, I'm available. Are you available 30 minutes next week? My next availability is Tuesday and Wednesday between 3 and 7 p.m. If those times don't work, I'd be more than happy to be flexible around your schedule. Let me know if any of those times work best for you. Again, you're giving them a time frame. And 2, you're saying you're willing to be flexible and you can work around their schedule. Also don't say like, send me a Zoom link and send me a calendar invite. What I would say is, please provide me, here's my cell phone number. Here's my email address. If you like, I'd be more than happy to send you a calendar invite and create a Zoom link. If you send me your email information, or I saw on the website that this is your email. Can I send a calendar invite to your email? Great. The less work the person has to do, the more likely they are to help you. If they say yes, again, provide some questions in advance if you can. You say, I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow. Here's just a quick snapshot of some of the questions that I have, just to know where, some of the questions that I do have. I look forward to talking with you tomorrow. And again, I appreciate you helping me. And show them that you've done your research. Don't ask generic. Hey, can you help me? I need a job. Okay, so do other people. Why am I different? Am I able to help you? Again, it's just so vague. It's not specific and it tells me nothing about you. But again, you don't want to give too much information about yourself, because more than likely they see a long email with the long paragraph format. All they're going to do is say, I'm going to read this email later, and then they're never going to read it again. We all have done it. And so would they. So make it so easy, short and sweet, to the point. And of course, always make sure that you're doing a lot of that front work and you're not giving them a lot of work to do on their part. So here's a quick script to connect on LinkedIn. Feel free to take a picture. This is something that I share with my private clients when I'm showing them how to build a network, especially if you're looking to apply or work at companies like Google, Salesforce, Amazon, NVIDIA. They're huge on hiring people that they've been referred. And the reason is because they get so many applications. For an average job, they get anywhere between 1,200 to 1,900 applications for one job. So that's just a lot of people to filter through resumes. But if they have someone within the company refer someone, that person's going to jump to the front line, because more than likely I hired, this person and they're a great candidate. And if their friends are being referred, they're probably as a great candidate as the current employee is, and it probably fits our culture. So, it's just quick to the point. Hi, I was looking at your profile and I see you have a background in X and Y. I love to connect and learn more about your career and gain some insights into the industry in blank. To the point, and that's just something to request to connect on LinkedIn. And then of course, once they connect, you'll be able to see the next script. So this is all right. Once they've maybe connected with you on LinkedIn, or maybe you looked at their profile and you actually were able to get their email address at their company. You can say, hi, my name is blank, and I was browsing through LinkedIn and came across your LinkedIn profile. Hope you don't mind that I'm reaching out. I saw that you used to work at blank and you were successfully able to pivot into this role. I would love to have the opportunity to ask you some questions and seek any advice you may have, given your knowledge of the industry. I currently work at X for a healthcare company overseeing a $40 million account. Again, that's the only thing I have about myself. And I just said that I'm interested in learning more about what they did. I know your time is extremely valuable, but I would appreciate if we could have a discussion. Are you free on this day? If not, I'd be happy to work around your schedule. And then again, quick to the point, feel free to take a picture or a screenshot and utilize the script. Out of 10 people, on average, you'll receive about 4 to 5 responses. Some people are not going to respond because they don't check LinkedIn. I've had people reach out to me a year later saying, I just saw your message on LinkedIn. I'm so sorry. I don't check it that often. Do you still need help? I'd be more than happy to help you. So don't take it personal, especially with everything happening. People are busy. They have lives. They're demanding careers, plus their family. They're managing e-learning with their children. So just go ahead and send out the email. People are more than happy to help. You're to the point. And of course, you want to be prepared for these meetings so that way you get the most out of it. So if you don't hear back on LinkedIn, like I mentioned, it's because they're just busy. And if there's still no answer, feel free to use resources like Voila Norbert or Hunter.io, which helps you put in the name of the person, the company they work at, and it actually uses an algorithm that says, we believe this is their email if you want to contact them directly. And usually it's for people that don't really check their LinkedIn that often. So what questions do you want to ask during your virtual meetup that will help you build stronger relationships and get referred into the jobs you want? So there's just a multiple series of questions you can ask. And I'll quickly go through this, but if you can get to the next slide. You want to make sure you have a high level understanding of the industry. If that's something you're looking to maybe pivot into a new industry, maybe you want to change from fintech to maybe the beauty industry or video logs, then that can be something you can look into. But there's different areas that you can move forward with different types of questions, and of course, be sure of what the objective is for the phone call. So now if you can go to the last slide, this is just a quick overview of, digital networking, how to get noticed and promoted, and how to build those relationships digitally. And I think we're going to Q&A now. So I think we can go to the next, the last slide, I'm sorry. Yes, so the Q&A.
The last slide, Claudia, do you want to cover this slide?
Yes, last slide, please. The last one. Yeah, there you go. So in case you're interested, I do offer a free complimentary session if you want to discuss more in privacy, salary negotiation, job searching. There's my website and my email where you can get in contact with me. So I think we're going to go now to Q&A.
Yes. Thank you, Claudia. That was a lot of information, wonderful information. I mean, very, everybody can relate to it, right? At any given point of time, they would have done some negotiations in the past. They may not have had all this information, and sometimes they may have ended up in a job where they would have got less, but definitely this will help them, or even a lot of people who are right now in transition, definitely this will help them for getting a better salary. Because the point that you mentioned about missing out on few $1,000s a year could add up to more than $500,000 over the period of 5 or 10 years, right? So that's a key information, like how you have to how important it is to negotiate and get a good value for your money, right? At the end of the day, everybody works for compensation, and and that's a key thing. So very interesting, very informative. And so one other thing we wanted to ask, there is a question regarding the salary negotiation.
Okay.
So when you set a range, like let's say I want a range between $70,000 to $90,000. Now I set up a range, but recruiters come back and tell, you're good with 70, so let me offer 72. So now they put up an offer. Now I wanted more. It was a range. So how do I, negotiate to get even more? Or in the first place, how do I set my range?
Yes. So that's when it comes to making sure you create your best alternative. Your range should be of what you want. Let's just say you're making 60,000 and you want to make 75,000 at minimum. You don't like that's what you really want. I would say, when they ask me what my salary range is between 75 and 90,000. So they'll usually, if they go towards the end, that's something that still is your best alternative. So you want to make sure you don't want to give them a range where you're not going to be happy. If I gave a range of 70 to 90 and they offer me 72 and I'm not happy with it, then I should have gone up in my salary range. I should have said my range is 75 to 90, or I'm actually looking to the salary range of 80 to 100, 80 to 90,000 based on the research that I did, the responsibilities. Is there any way we can close that gap? And then if they offered you that 70, 72, then they can get creative on how to close that gap. And then if they say, that's all we have, I definitely understand. I need some time, to review again the offer. Could you send me a list of all the benefits that would be related to this role, as well as health insurance, any professional development, anything, your PTO time, as well as your paternity and maternity leave benefits, like all that information, so I can better assess the total comp plan. But I am looking more towards that salary range, at least for base, around 80 to 90,000. And then they're going to say, all right, let me see what I can do. Oh, I need to talk to the hiring manager. And then they're going to talk to them. I've been in a position and I've had clients where they were able to negotiate their salary. So they told them that it was going to pay anywhere between 120 to 130. And they actually ended up offering her 138,000. That was a $48,000 salary increase than what she was previously making, because she gave the range that she wanted.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you, Claudia, for that. We have another similar question. How do you negotiate, especially when you have been out of job for a while and your leverage is not very high to negotiate in an extremely competitive market?
It all deals with positioning. If, for example, if you have been out of work for a while, you want to use a skills-based resume. And what that means is we focus more on the transferable skills in the data and the experience that you do have. And then at the end, towards the bottom half of the resume, you want to put more of that professional history experience. I had a client who was out of work for 15 years because she was a stay-at-home mom and wanted to jump back into the industry. So we did it in a skills-based format. And now she was able to get interviews between 3 to 4 weeks. And after 2 months after working together, she had a job offer. Not one person asked her about her break in work history, even though it was 15 years. And again, they were still able to leverage it. If you bring that, it's all about positioning and how you're leveraging yourself. Because you've been out of work doesn't mean you can't bring value to the company. If you, the time you were out of work, you're still getting certifications, maybe you're part of committees, you're still building this network, that's all important. And even if you did coursework and you did projects around it, position it as such, based on what the market industry and the responsibilities entailed, here's the range that I'm looking for. Again, it comes all to positioning and branding yourself. If you say, well, yeah, I know I've been out of the industry for a while, they're going to say like, yeah, and then they're going to find opportunities of giving you the low end of that range. But if you say, I know I have experience in X, Y, and Z. And I know because based on what you're looking for, I can definitely help your team in this specific set and achieve the specific goals, especially because I do have a background, or I currently just finished a coursework where I'm going to be able to leverage it and, and be able to create a stronger be able to pair it with my solution architecture. And now that I learned about data analytics and machine learning, I'm definitely confident that I can help you achieve or meet that goal. And again, it's all about positioning. I've had a recent graduate with maybe 2 internship experience that they were able to negotiate their salary and get a $15,000 raise, even though this was their first entry-level job.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to know. And one other thing, how do you know, how do you know that you are in a position for negotiation? Like, how do you determine that you have an edge when negotiating? Because definitely the employers, the recruiters might have other candidates, right, whom they are negotiating with at times, and whether the company would be willing to do it or not. So how do you know, and how do you know that you have an edge in negotiation and do the negotiation with them?
A quick rule of thumb is if you're getting the job offer, you can negotiate. That means that they thought the employer, you were a great candidate, you'd be a great fit for the company, and they saw that you would bring value. Therefore, negotiate your salary. So always negotiate your salary, even if they offer you let's just say you want to make anywhere between 120 to 130 and they offer you 150, I would still negotiate my salary. That means that there's more room on the table. And you're probably making up money that you probably didn't negotiate before. So for example, I had, there was 2 VPs at a company, a woman and a man. A woman didn't negotiate her salary and she was making 180. From the male aspect colleague who was a VP of a similar but different department was making 240. That's a $60,000 difference. Probably because either one, she wasn't negotiating her salary, or she just started and she only asked for 10 to 15, not knowing that she could have made $60,000 more.
So how do we find out that, right? That this company can offer me X amount of dollars, like, because a lot of people, when they negotiate the salary, they just think about the current salary and then they say, 20% added bonus or whatever it is, this could be it. But how do they know that this company can offer even more?
It's not the companies, what the market is paying. So again, research based on like Glassdoor really quickly, but also reaching out to people. So let's just say if you are at a VP level, then I would reach out to maybe someone that's already retired, maybe at a board of directors that had a similar role. And I would reach out to them, say, hey, I'm looking for this VP role at this company, at Dell. And I know that you worked at the company before, or you've worked in this industry and you used to be a VP. What is a salary range that typically the market pays for this type of role? They'll be able to tell you because one, they're already retired. Like I said, always go 2 levels up and people are more likely to be more transparent with what they used to make or what they used to pay their employees, because it has nothing to do with me personally. So then they can say, well, when I was VP, this is the range that we were looking at. But if you mention X, Y, and Z, or the more, like I said, starting that praise folder, the achievement portfolio, it's like you're making a business case for yourself of why you should be the top level of that range. But a lot of it through salary negotiation is all the way from the beginning. You should have a great resume because that makes you the most anticipated and wanted candidate out of the pool of people I'm about to interview. So, RK, if you have a great resume and the 4 other people I'm interviewing are okay, I'm going to say, okay, I'm most interested to interview RK. I mean, he already has a great resume. I love his achievements and accolades that he talks about in his resume. Let's bring him in. If you come into this interview well prepared, about the company, maybe the trends, you already know some pain points that we're experiencing as a company. And you have that experience to say, I've worked in X, Y, and Z, and I can help you with this project you have upcoming and help you gain competitive advantage because I have experience from these previous competitors of yours. Then all of a sudden I'm like, I need to hire RK. And everyone else is like, yeah, I have experience and, I am a really hard worker and a team worker and I can collaborate. You're going to stand out from everyone else that I'm going to say, we need RK. We need to have him on board. Let's give him the top or that top tier of that salary range. Therefore, because the last thing I want is you declining our offer and leaving. I don't want to hire my second option. I want to hire you because you can deliver the value that I want. And then even when I offer you the top tier, if you negotiate, that even makes me position you as a higher level candidate, because I know that when you're representing my company or my department, you're going to be negotiating on our behalf because you can do it for yourself as well.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you. We're almost at the top of the hour. So I wanted to ask you, just summarize. There are a lot of good information that you shared. I'm pretty sure it is very helpful for our audience today. If you can summarize and give 1 or 2 points for the audience to take away with them today, that would be very helpful.
Yep. What I've seen is 1, you're never selling yourself enough. I know people say, well, I don't want to sound like I'm showing off. Trust me, you're not showing off. Even when you think you're showing off, you're not showing off. 2, you want to make sure that you do your research and preparation. A lot of this, if you're looking to prepare the night before, it's already too late. If you're 6 months before you start job searching or you're already job searching, you should start now because it'll make it easier, find more confidence, you'll have more research, and then you get to practice it. And then 3, always negotiate your salary. You're worth it. Like I said, if you're getting the job offer, there's value you have to bring to the organization. Even if this is your entry level job or this is the first time you're doing this role, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their value, and most people don't give you the top edge tier of that salary. So negotiate for those extra 5,000-10,000. Like we said, there's $500,000 minimum you're leaving on the table. So why not get it?
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Claudia. This has been very, very helpful. Audience, if you have any further questions for Claudia, please feel free to reach out to her. Her contact information is here. It's listed. The email address and everything. If you want to take a screenshot, please feel free. And thank you, Claudia. It's been trying times for everyone. It's a difficult time for the country, and you taking time off your busy schedule to educate our audiences about the importance of career self-branding, the importance of networking, and how to do compensation negotiation will definitely help them in their career move, and also for students who are looking for new opportunities. With that note, I thank you and have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.